A poor girl accidentally sends a desperate message to a powerful CEO asking for help with medicine. What he does next shocks even her doctor. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Maya's fingers trembled as she typed the message, her vision blurring from the fever that had plagued her for 3 days now. The screen of her cracked phone illuminated her face in the dimly lit room, casting shadows that accentuated her hollow cheeks and the dark circles under her honey-colored eyes. "Please, I need help," she typed. "I've been sick for days and can't afford the medicine. I hate asking, but I don't know what else to do. Could you lend me $75? I'll pay you back when I get my next paycheck." She hesitated before hitting send, shame washing over her. At 21, Maya Johnson had never imagined she'd be reduced to begging, but her roommate had moved out unexpectedly, leaving her with the full rent. The part-time jobs at the diner and convenience store barely covered her expenses, and this illness had caused her to miss 3 shifts already. One more missed day, and she might lose both jobs. Maya hit send and placed the phone on her nightstand, pulling the thin blanket tighter around her shivering body. The apartment was cold. She'd turned the heat down to save money, and the February wind whistled through the poorly sealed windows of her small studio apartment in the rougher part of the city. Her eyelids grew heavy as exhaustion took over. Just before drifting off to sleep, her phone buzzed. Expecting a rejection from her cousin Tasha, whom she'd texted for help, Maya reluctantly checked the message. "I think you have the wrong number. But are you okay? Do you need medical attention?" Maya's heart sank. In her feverish state, she must have misdialed. She quickly typed back, "I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore." The response came immediately. "Are you sure you're all right? If you need medical help, I can point you towards some resources." Maya stared at the message from the stranger, torn between embarrassment and desperation. Her pride urged her to end the conversation, but the persistent cough that rattled her chest reminded her of her precarious situation. "I'll be fine," she typed. "Just a bad cold I can't shake. Sorry to bother you." She placed the phone down again, but it buzzed once more. "What medicine do you need?" Maya hesitated. Was this some kind of scam? Who offers help to strangers these days? But something in the direct, no-nonsense tone of the messages gave her pause. "Antibiotics. Doctor says I have bronchitis, but I can't afford the prescription." There was a longer pause this time. Maya closed her eyes, expecting no further response. The stranger had probably come to their senses. "What pharmacy? And your name?" Maya's eyes snapped open. Was this person really offering to help? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. This could be dangerous. Giving personal information to strangers went against everything she'd been taught. Yet what choice did she have? "West Side Pharmacy on 23rd Street, Maya Johnson. But you don't have to do this, really." "It's done. The prescription will be ready in 20 minutes. They have it under your name." Maya stared at the screen in disbelief. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" "Because I can. Get well, Maya." Maya tried to respond with thanks, but the stranger didn't reply. She pulled herself out of bed, every muscle aching as she slowly dressed in her warmest clothes. The walk to the pharmacy was 8 blocks, and in her condition, it would take all her strength. The cold air hit her like a physical blow as she stepped outside, the wind cutting through her thin coat. Maya tucked her chin into her scarf and began the slow journey, each step requiring deliberate effort. By the time she reached the pharmacy, her lungs burned and sweat beaded on her forehead despite the freezing temperature. At the counter, she gave her name timidly, half expecting to be told there was nothing waiting for her. Instead, the pharmacist handed her a bag with not just the antibiotics but also cough syrup, fever reducers, and a multivitamin. "It's all been paid for," the pharmacist said with a smile. "Somebody must like you." Maya clutched the bag to her chest as she made her way back home, bewildered by the stranger's kindness. Back in her apartment, she took the first dose of medication before collapsing back into bed, too exhausted to process what had happened. The next morning she felt marginally better. The fever had broken during the night, and though her chest still hurt with each cough, her head was clearer. She picked up her phone, intending to thank the mysterious benefactor again. "I don't know who you are, but thank you. The medicine is already helping. I wish I could repay you somehow." To her surprise, a response came quickly. "Glad to hear it. No repayment necessary." Maya bit her lip, curiosity getting the better of her. "Can I at least know your name?" "Elijah. And yours is Maya, correct?" "Yes. Nice to meet you, Elijah, though I wish it had been under different circumstances." "Circumstances are what they are. How are you feeling today?" Maya was surprised by the continued interest. "Better. Still coughing, but the fever's gone." "Good. Make sure you finish the entire course of antibiotics." Maya smiled at the phone. Whoever this Elijah was, he seemed genuinely concerned. "I will. Are you a doctor?" "No. Just someone who knows the importance of following medical advice." As Maya prepared to respond, another message came through. "I hope this isn't inappropriate, but may I check in on you tomorrow, just to make sure you're improving?" Maya hesitated. There was something strange about forming a connection with someone she'd never met, whose wrong number had turned into an unexpected lifeline. Yet, she couldn't deny feeling a flutter of interest. "That would be nice. Thank you." For the next 3 days, Elijah checked in each morning. Their conversations were brief but gradually expanded beyond Maya's health. She learned he worked in business, but little else. He was private, but unfailingly polite. For her part, Maya shared small details about her life, her jobs, her stalled education, her dreams of becoming a nurse someday. By the 4th day, Maya was well enough to return to work. As she tied her apron for her shift at the diner, her phone buzzed with Elijah's now familiar morning check-in. "Back to work today," she texted him. "Thanks to you." "That's excellent news. Which job?" "The diner first, then the convenience store tonight. Double shift." "Isn't that too much? You're still recovering." His concern warmed her. "Bills don't pay themselves, but I'll be careful." There was a pause before his next message. "What's the name of the diner?" Maya hesitated. She'd been careful not to give too many identifying details, aware of the potential risks of sharing information with a stranger. But after what he'd done for her, it seemed unnecessarily suspicious to withhold such a simple fact. "Bluebird Diner on 5th and Main. Why?" "Just curious. Have a good shift, Maya." The morning rush kept Maya busy, serving plates of eggs and refilling coffee cups with practiced efficiency. Her manager, noting her lingering cough, assigned her to the less demanding tables. By lunch, the crowd had thinned and Maya was wiping down a booth when the bell above the door chimed. A tall man in a tailored charcoal suit entered, looking distinctly out of place among the diner's usual clientele of blue-collar workers and students. His dark hair was neatly styled and his clean-shaven face had the sharp angles of someone who regularly graced magazine covers. When he turned, scanning the room with intense dark eyes, Maya felt an inexplicable flutter in her stomach. Their gazes met, and for a moment, Maya forgot to breathe. There was something familiar about him, though she was certain they'd never met. She would have remembered someone who looked like that. He approached the counter, and Maya moved automatically to serve him, straightening her wrinkled uniform self-consciously. "Welcome to Bluebird," she said, her voice professional despite her sudden nervousness. "What can I get you?" The man studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled, a small, almost cautious gesture that transformed his serious face. "Hello, Maya," he said quietly. Maya froze, her hand clutching her order pad. There was only one way he could know her name, despite the absence of a name tag on her uniform. "Elijah?" she whispered, disbelief coloring her voice. The man nodded, his dark eyes never leaving her face. "I hope I'm not overstepping," he said, his voice deep and smooth, exactly how Maya had imagined it would sound. I was in the area for a meeting and thought I'd see how you were doing." Maya struggled to reconcile the kind stranger who had helped her with this polished, clearly wealthy man sitting before her. His watch alone probably cost more than her rent. "You're not at all what I expected," she managed to say, aware of her manager watching from across the diner. Elijah's smile widened slightly. "What did you expect?" Maya shrugged, feeling suddenly self-conscious about her worn uniform and the dark skin that gleamed with a thin sheen of sweat from rushing between tables. "I don't know. Not this." She gestured vaguely at his expensive suit. "I should have introduced myself properly," he admitted. "Elijah Monroe." The name registered immediately, and Maya's eyes widened. Monroe Technologies was one of the city's largest employers, its sleek skyscraper dominating the downtown skyline. Its young CEO was occasionally featured in business magazines and local news. She'd never paid much attention, but the name was unmistakable. You run Monroe Technologies," she said, her voice barely audible. "I do," he confirmed, seeming almost apologetic. "Is that a problem?" Before Maya could respond, her manager approached, eyeing Elijah with the keen awareness of someone who recognized money when he saw it. "Everything all right here, Maya?" he asked, though his attention was fixed on Elijah. "Yes, Mr. Gaines. I was just taking this gentleman's order." Elijah smoothly ordered coffee and a slice of pie, and the manager hurried away to prepare it himself, leaving Maya standing awkwardly by the counter. "I should get back to work," she said, unable to meet Elijah's eyes. "Of course. I didn't mean to disrupt your day. I just wanted to make sure you were recovering well." His sincerity was evident, and Maya felt her initial shock giving way to curiosity. "My shift ends at 3, she found herself saying. "If you want to talk, then." Elijah's expression brightened. "I'd like that. I'll come back." For the remainder of her shift, Maya moved through her tasks in a daze. Every time the bell chimed, she looked up, though Elijah had left an hour ago, promising to return. Her mind raced with questions. Why would someone like him help her? What did he want? Despite her wariness, she couldn't deny the flutter of excitement she felt at the prospect of seeing him again. At 3 o'clock precisely, the bell chimed, and Elijah walked in, now dressed more casually in dark jeans and a gray sweater that still screamed expensive but didn't stand out quite as dramatically. Maya had changed out of her uniform into her only decent pair of jeans and a blue blouse she saved for job interviews. "Ready?" he asked, and she nodded, ignoring the curious glances from her co-workers as she followed him outside. "There's a coffee shop around the corner," Maya suggested, pulling her coat tighter against the cold. Elijah nodded, falling into step beside her. They walked in silence, Maya acutely aware of the contrast they must present, her with her worn boots and second-hand coat, him with his casual elegance that spoke of privilege. The coffee shop was warm and half-empty. They found a table in the corner, and Elijah insisted on buying their drinks despite Maya's protests. When he returned with 2 steaming mugs, Maya finally voiced the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why did you help me?" Elijah took a sip of his coffee before answering. "Your message came through when I was in the middle of a board meeting about cutting health benefits for our lower-tier employees to save costs. I was arguing against it, but some board members were insistent." He paused. "Then I got your text, someone desperate for medicine they couldn't afford, and it felt like, I don't know, a sign maybe." "So I was a convenient moral object lesson?" Maya asked, trying not to sound bitter. "No," Elijah said firmly. "You were a person who needed help that I could easily provide. The timing just made it particularly poignant." Maya studied him over the rim of her mug. Up close, she could see the faint shadows under his eyes, the slight furrow between his brows that spoke of stress. "Did you win the argument? About the benefits?" His surprise at her question was evident. "Yes, actually. I made it clear that as majority shareholder, I wouldn't approve any reduction in employee health care." Maya nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. Good. Now it's my turn for a question, Elijah said, leaning forward slightly. You mentioned you wanted to be a nurse. What stopped you? The directness of his question caught Maya off guard. Most people danced around the topic of her stalled dreams, assuming the answer was simply lack of money, which wasn't wrong, but wasn't the whole story either. My mom got sick during my second year of nursing school, she said, tracing the rim of her mug with her finger. Cancer. I dropped out to care for her and work full-time. After she died, there were medical bills, funeral costs. By the time those were paid, going back to school seemed impossible. I'm sorry about your mother, Elijah said softly. It's been 2 years, Maya replied. The familiar ache in her chest whenever she spoke of her mother dulled but still present. I've almost paid off the last of her bills. Then maybe I can start thinking about classes again. Is that why you're working 2 jobs? Maya nodded. The diner pays better, but they can't give me full-time hours. The convenience store is minimum wage, but every bit helps. And you live alone? No roommates to help with rent? Had one until last month. She moved in with her boyfriend without much notice, leaving me with the full rent until the lease ends in May. Elijah was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Maya braced herself for pity, but when he spoke, his tone was matter-of-fact. That's a lot for anyone to handle. You seem remarkably resilient. The simple acknowledgement of her struggle without judgment brought unexpected tears to Maya's eyes. She blinked them away quickly, embarrassed. It's just life, she said with a small shrug. Everyone has their challenges. True, but not everyone faces them with such grace. Maya couldn't help but laugh. You think this is grace? You should have seen me 3 days ago, feverish and begging strangers for money. Elijah's expression softened. Asking for help when you need it takes courage, not weakness. Many people in my position would rather sink than admit they can't swim. The conversation shifted to lighter topics. Maya learned that Elijah was 29 and had taken over Monroe Technologies 4 years ago when his father suffered a stroke. He'd expanded the company's focus from hardware manufacturing to include software development, nearly doubling its value in the process. Despite his success, he spoke about his work with a mixture of pride and weariness that suggested the responsibilities weighed heavily on him. Do you enjoy it? Maya asked. Running the company? Elijah considered the question seriously. Parts of it. I enjoy problem-solving and innovation. I like knowing we create products that improve people's lives and provide good jobs. He paused. The politics of it. The board meetings, the shareholders, the constant pressure to increase profits regardless of human cost. That part I could do without. Could you step back? Let someone else take over? It's complicated. The company has been in my family for 3 generations. My father may never fully recover, but he's cognizant enough to be proud that I'm continuing his legacy. Elijah glanced at his watch and looked apologetic. I'm sorry. I have a call I can't miss in 15 minutes. Maya nodded, suddenly remembering her own obligations. And I should get ready for my next shift anyway. They stood somewhat awkwardly, the brief connection they'd formed already starting to feel tenuous as reality reasserted itself. It was good to meet you properly, Maya, Elijah said, extending his hand. Maya took it, noting the warmth of his palm against hers. Thank you again for the medicine. I don't know what I would have done. I'm glad I could help. He seemed about to say something more but hesitated. Maybe I could check in on you again sometime? Just to see how you're doing? The hopeful note in his voice made Maya's heart skip. Common sense told her to end this now. What possible future could there be in a connection between them? Yet she found herself nodding. I'd like that. Elijah's smile was warm and genuine. Take care of yourself, Maya. Don't work too hard. As she watched him walk away, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, though she couldn't quite define what it was. With a sigh, she headed toward her apartment to change for her evening shift, the memory of Elijah's smile lingering in her mind. The convenience store was quiet that evening, giving Maya too much time to replay her conversation with Elijah. By the time she locked up at midnight, she had convinced herself that she would never hear from him again. Their worlds were too different, the chasm between them too vast. But as she trudged home through the cold, her phone buzzed with a message. "I enjoyed meeting you today. Hope your second shift wasn't too tiring." Elijah. Maya stopped under a streetlight, reading the message twice before responding. "It was good meeting you too. Store was quiet tonight. Almost home now." His reply came immediately. "Glad to hear it. Rest well, Maya." It was a simple exchange, but as Maya continued her walk home, her steps felt lighter. For the first time in longer than she could remember, someone was looking out for her. Even if nothing more came of it, that felt like a gift in itself. Over the next 2 weeks, Elijah's texts became a regular part of Maya's life. They started as simple check-ins. How was she feeling? Was she working too hard? But gradually evolved into conversations about their days, their thoughts, their lives. Maya found herself sharing things she rarely discussed with anyone. Her dreams for the future, memories of her mother, her frustrations with the endless cycle of work and bills that left her too exhausted to move forward. Elijah, in turn, opened up about the pressures of running a company at such a young age, his complicated relationship with his ailing father, and his desire to make Monroe Technologies a force for good in the community. Through these exchanges, a friendship began to form, bridging the vast differences in their circumstances. One evening, as Maya was finishing her shift at the convenience store, a message from Elijah lit up her phone. "Are you free tomorrow evening? There's a new exhibit at the art museum I thought you might enjoy." Maya stared at the message, her heart racing. Was this a date, or just a friendly outing? Either way, the prospect of spending time with Elijah in person again filled her with nervous excitement. "I'm off at 4 from the diner. Would that work?" "Perfect. I'll pick you up there. Dress warmly. We might take a walk after." Maya spent her shift the next day distracted, earning a gentle reprimand from her manager when she mixed up orders twice in an hour. By the time 4 o'clock approached, her stomach was in knots. She'd brought a change of clothes, black pants, and an emerald sweater that brought out the gold flecks in her honey-colored eyes, and applied a touch of makeup in the staff bathroom. When she stepped outside, Elijah was waiting by a sleek black car, looking effortlessly elegant in dark jeans and a navy peacoat. His face brightened when he saw her, and Maya felt a flutter in her chest that she tried desperately to ignore. "You look nice," he said as she approached. "Thanks. So do you." Maya glanced at the car. "Is that yours?" "Company car," Elijah admitted, opening the passenger door for her. "One of the perks of the job." The interior was all leather and polished wood, and Maya sat carefully, conscious of her worn boots against the pristine floor mats. As Elijah slid into the driver's seat, she caught a hint of his cologne, something subtle and expensive that made her all too aware of his proximity. "The exhibit is a collection of contemporary works focused on urban life," Elijah explained as they drove. "The artist grew up in this city, actually, not far from your neighborhood." "Really? What's their name?" "Marcus Rivera. Have you heard of him?" Maya shook her head. "I don't get much time for art these days." "That's a shame. You strike me as someone who would appreciate it." "What makes you say that?" Elijah glanced at her, a small smile playing on his lips. "You notice things. In your texts, you often mention small details. The way light hits a building, how a customer's hands tell their life story. That's an artist's eye." Maya felt her cheeks warm at his observation. "My mom was the same way. She always said beauty was everywhere if you knew how to look." "She sounds like a wise woman." She was. They fell into comfortable silence for the remainder of the drive. At the museum, Elijah led her past the ticket line, nodding to the staff who clearly recognized him. Maya realized belatedly that Monroe Technologies was probably a major donor. The exhibit was housed in a large, airy space with soft lighting that highlighted the vibrant canvases. Maya moved slowly from painting to painting, absorbed in the artist's depiction of city life. Not the glossy skyline of travel brochures, but the gritty, authentic pulse of the streets she knew well. There were images of tired workers waiting for buses in pre-dawn light, children playing in spraying fire hydrants, elderly neighbors sharing stories on stoops. "These are amazing," Maya murmured, stopping before a particularly striking canvas showing a young woman sleeping on a subway train, her work uniform wrinkled, her face both exhausted and serene. He sees the dignity in everyday struggle. Elijah, who had been quietly letting her take in the art at her own pace, moved to stand beside her. That's exactly it. Rivera could have gone commercial, painted what sells. Instead, he chose to honor the lives most people overlook. "Like you," Maya said without thinking. Elijah turned to her, brows raised in question. "I mean," Maya clarified, "most people in your position wouldn't notice someone like me, wouldn't stop to help." "I think you underestimate both yourself and people in my position," Elijah replied softly. "But I understand what you mean." They continued through the exhibit, occasionally sharing observations but mostly experiencing the art in companionable silence. Maya was struck by how comfortable she felt with Elijah, despite the obvious disparities between them. He never made her feel lesser or out of place, and his genuine interest in her thoughts was both flattering and disarming. After the museum, they took a walk through the nearby park, the early evening air crisp but not unpleasantly cold. Street lamps illuminated the path, and a few hardy joggers passed them as they strolled. "Thank you for this," Maya said, her breath visible in the chilly air. "I can't remember the last time I did something just for enjoyment." "That's a travesty," Elijah responded, his tone light but his eyes serious. "Everyone deserves time to experience beauty, to just exist without purpose for a while. That's a luxury when you're living paycheck to paycheck. It shouldn't be. It's a basic human need." Maya smiled at his earnestness. "The world doesn't always work the way it should." "No," Elijah agreed, "but that doesn't mean we stop trying to make it better." They paused at a small bridge overlooking a frozen pond, the city skyline rising beyond it. Elijah leaned against the railing, his profile sharp against the darkening sky. "Can I ask you something, Maya?" "Of course." "If money wasn't an issue, what would you do? Besides finishing nursing school, I mean." Maya considered the question, one she rarely allowed herself to contemplate. "I'd travel. I've never been outside this state, let alone the country. I'd want to see different cultures, experience different ways of living." She paused, feeling suddenly vulnerable. "I'd want to help people in places where medical care is scarce. Use my nursing skills where they're most needed." Elijah was watching her intently, something unreadable in his expression. "That's beautiful." Maya shrugged, embarrassed. "It's just a dream. Dreams matter. They show us who we really are, beneath all the compromises we make to survive." His words resonated with something deep within her, and Maya found herself blinking back unexpected tears. Elijah noticed, and, with gentle hesitation, reached out to touch her arm. "I've upset you. I'm sorry." "No," Maya assured him, summoning a smile. "It's just been a long time since I let myself think about those dreams. Sometimes it's easier not to want things you can't have." Elijah's hand remained on her arm, warm through the fabric of her coat. "Maya, His phone rang, the sound jarring in the quiet of the evening. Elijah grimaced, checking the screen. "I'm sorry, I have to take this. It's my father's nurse." He stepped away to answer, and Maya watched him, noting the immediate tension that claimed his shoulders. When he returned, his expression was apologetic. "I need to go to the hospital. My father's had a setback." "Of course," Maya said immediately. "I hope he's all right. It happens periodically. The doctors will stabilize him, but I should be there." He hesitated. "I can drop you home first." "Don't worry about me. The hospital is in the opposite direction from my place. I can take the bus." Elijah frowned. "It's getting late. Let me at least call you a cab." "Elijah, I take the bus every day. It's fine." He looked unconvinced but nodded. "Text me when you get home safely?" The concern in his voice warmed her. "I will." They walked back to the museum parking lot in silence, both aware that the easy connection of the evening had been disrupted. At Elijah's car, he paused, turning to face her. "I enjoyed tonight, Maya. I'm sorry it ended this way." "Don't apologize. Family comes first. I understand that better than most." Elijah's expression softened. "Yes, I suppose you do." He reached out, briefly touching her hand. "Thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me that there's more to life than board meetings and profit margins. For seeing me as just Elijah, not the CEO of Monroe Technologies." Maya smiled. "Well, thank you for the art and the company. It was nice to feel normal for a while." Elijah's gaze lingered on her face for a moment, and Maya felt a charge in the air between them, a possibility neither was ready to acknowledge. Then he stepped back. "I'll text you tomorrow if that's all right." "I'd like that." Maya watched him drive away, conflicting emotions swirling within her. The evening had been perfect until its abrupt end, a glimpse into a world of leisure and beauty she rarely experienced. But it had also reinforced the fundamental differences in their lives. While she returned to her cold apartment and early morning shift, Elijah headed to a private hospital room, the weight of family legacy and corporate responsibility on his shoulders. On the bus ride home, Maya found herself wondering if their growing connection was sustainable, or if the realities of their disparate worlds would eventually pull them apart. Despite these doubts, she couldn't deny the warmth that filled her when she thought of him, the way his texts brightened her days, the genuine interest he took in her thoughts and dreams. When she reached her apartment, Maya sent a quick message as promised. "Home safe. Hope your father is stable." His reply came an hour later. "He's responding well to treatment. Thank you for checking, and thank you again for a lovely evening." Maya fell asleep with her phone beside her pillow, a small smile on her lips despite the uncertainty that clouded her thoughts. The next morning dawned gray and bitter cold. Maya huddled at the bus stop, shivering in her inadequate coat as she waited for the bus that would take her to the diner. Her phone buzzed in her pocket and she pulled it out with gloved fingers. "Morning. How are you today?" Elijah's text read. Despite her exhaustion and the cold seeping into her bones, Maya smiled. "Freezing at the bus stop, but otherwise okay. How's your father?" "Stable. Doctors are cautiously optimistic. Is the heat not working in your apartment again?" Maya was surprised he remembered that detail from one of their earlier conversations. "It works, just not well. Landlord says he'll fix it when he gets around to it." "That's unacceptable. It's 15 degrees outside." "Welcome to low-income housing," Maya replied, adding a shrugging emoji to lighten the tone. She didn't want him to think she was complaining or, worse, hinting for help. His response came just as the bus lumbered into view. "Can I see you again? Tomorrow, maybe?" The directness of the question made her heart skip. "I work the early shift at the diner, but I'm free after 2. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 2:30. Dress very warmly." Maya spent her shift wondering what Elijah had planned. Their evening at the museum had felt almost like a date, though neither had framed it that way. This felt more deliberate, and the thought both thrilled and terrified her. By noon, the diner was nearly empty due to a snowstorm that had started mid-morning. Mr. Gaines, eyeing the thickening snow through the window, called the remaining staff together. "We're closing early. Roads are getting bad, and nobody's coming out in this weather anyway." Maya felt a mixture of relief and concern. The time off was welcome, but the lost hours meant lost wages she could ill afford. As she bundled up to leave, her co-worker Denise approached. "Hey, wasn't that the guy who came in the other day?" The one in the fancy suit? Denise's eyes were bright with curiosity. He's been back twice this week when you weren't around, asking when you'd be working. Maya felt her cheeks warm despite the cold. He's just a friend. Denise raised an eyebrow. Rich friends are the best kind to have, honey, especially ones who look at you the way he does. What do you mean? Like you're the most interesting person he's ever seen. Denise patted her arm. Don't overthink it. Just enjoy the ride. Maya left the diner conflicted. She liked Elijah, more than liked him if she was honest with herself. But what could possibly come of it? A brief fling before he inevitably returned to women from his own world? The thought left a bitter taste in her mouth. She was halfway home when her phone rang. Elijah's name flashed on the screen. "Hello?" she answered, her voice nearly lost in the wind. "Maya? Where are you? It sounds like you're outside." "Walking home. The diner closed early because of the snow." "Where exactly are you? I'll come get you." "Elijah, that's not necessary." "Maya." His voice was firm. "It's blizzard conditions out there. Please let me pick you up." She sighed, relenting. "I'm on 4th Street, heading toward Maple. Stay where you are. I'll be there in 10 minutes. True to his word, Elijah's black car appeared through the swirling snow exactly 10 minutes later. Maya slid gratefully into the warm interior, brushing snow from her coat. "Thank you," she said, her teeth chattering slightly. This storm came out of nowhere. Elijah frowned at her thin coat and worn gloves. "You're not dressed for this weather." "I dress for the weather I can afford," Maya replied with a wry smile. "Not all of us have cashmere and wool." Instead of responding, Elijah reached into the back seat and handed her a soft, thick blanket. "Here, wrap up." Maya accepted the blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders and luxuriating in its immediate warmth. "This is heaven." "Your address?" Elijah asked, putting the car in drive. Maya hesitated, suddenly self-conscious about showing him her shabby apartment building. "Actually, would you mind if we went somewhere else? A cafe, maybe? I'm not quite ready to be alone in my cold apartment." If Elijah suspected her real reason, he didn't show it. "Of course. I know a place nearby that makes excellent hot chocolate." The cafe was small and cozy, with a fireplace crackling in one corner. They found a table near the fire, and Elijah insisted on ordering not just hot chocolate but also soup and sandwiches when he noticed Maya eyeing the menu with poorly concealed hunger. "You don't have to feed me," she protested, though her stomach growled traitorously. "Consider it self-interest. I enjoy your company, and that's difficult if you faint from hunger." Maya laughed despite herself. "Fair enough." As they ate, Elijah told her about his father's condition, a series of strokes that had left him partially paralyzed and with fluctuating cognitive abilities. Some days he's almost himself, sharp and engaged. Other days he doesn't recognize me. "That must be hard," Maya said softly, "to see him like that." "It is, but in some ways, it's given us a chance to heal our relationship. Before he got sick, we fought constantly. I wanted to modernize the company, focus more on sustainability and employee welfare. He was old school, profit above all else. And now? Now he's proud of what I've done, even the changes he fought against. Funny how perspective shifts when mortality becomes real." Maya nodded, thinking of her own mother's final months. "My mom was the same. So worried about me at the end, when I should have been the one worrying about her. All she wanted was for me to go back to school, to not give up my dreams for her. And yet you did." "I did what anyone would do for someone they love." Elijah's eyes softened. "Not everyone, Maya. What you did was extraordinary." The conversation drifted to lighter topics as they finished their meal. Outside, the snow continued to fall, transforming the city into a quiet, white landscape. When they finally left the cafe, the streets were nearly deserted, the usual urban noise muffled by the thick blanket of snow. "I should get you home before the roads get worse," Elijah said reluctantly. Maya nodded, equally reluctant to end their time together. In the car, she finally gave him her address, bracing herself for his reaction. To his credit, Elijah showed no outward response as they drove into her neighborhood, with its run-down buildings and graffiti-covered walls. When they reached her apartment building, Maya moved to return the blanket, but Elijah shook his head. "Keep it, please." "I can't." "You can," he insisted gently. "I have others." Maya relented, touched by the gesture. "Thank you for everything today. It was my pleasure." Elijah hesitated. "Are we still on for tomorrow?" "Yes, definitely." "Good. I'll see you at 2:30 then." Maya got out of the car, clutching the blanket around her shoulders. At the entrance to her building, she turned to wave, and Elijah raised a hand in response before driving away. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Maya couldn't help but wonder what tomorrow would bring. When she opened her apartment door, she was immediately struck by a change. The persistent chill that had been her constant companion for weeks was gone, replaced by blessed warmth. Confused, Maya checked the ancient radiator and found it working perfectly. A note had been taped to it. "Fix the heating system for the whole building. Let me know if there are any issues. Your landlord." Maya stared at the note, suspicion growing. This was the same landlord who had been ignoring her calls for weeks. What had changed? A text message notification interrupted her thoughts. "Is your apartment warm enough now?" Elijah's message read. Maya's eyes widened. "What did you do?" she texted back. "I may have called your landlord. Heating is a legal requirement, not a luxury." "And did this call involve any financial incentives?" There was a pause before his response. "I simply reminded him of his legal obligations. The fact that Monroe Technologies owns the building management company he works for might have come up in conversation." Maya sat on her bed, stunned. "You own my building?" "Not exactly. One of our subsidiaries owns the management company that oversees several properties, including yours. I wasn't aware of the connection until I looked into it today." Maya wasn't sure whether to be grateful or disturbed by this revelation. On one hand, she was finally warm. On the other, it highlighted the vast power imbalance between them. Elijah could solve with a single phone call problems that had plagued her for months. "Thank you," she finally texted, deciding gratitude was appropriate regardless of her complicated feelings. "But please don't do things like this without telling me. It makes me feel, I don't know, like a charity case." His response was immediate. "You're right. I apologize. It won't happen again without your knowledge and consent." Maya appreciated his understanding, but a new worry nagged at her. If their connection continued to deepen, how could she ever be sure of his true feelings? Would he see her as an equal, or as someone to be rescued? And could she trust her own feelings, knowing the security he could provide? These questions haunted her as she prepared for bed, the unfamiliar warmth of her apartment both a comfort and a reminder of the complex dynamics at play. Despite her concerns, she couldn't deny the flutter of anticipation she felt about seeing him again tomorrow. Whatever was growing between them was complicated, but it was also the most alive she had felt in years. The next morning, Maya woke to another text from Elijah. "Still on for today? I thought we could drive to the lake. There's an ice sculpture exhibition I think you might enjoy." "Sounds wonderful," she replied. "See you at 2:30? Maya spent the morning cleaning her apartment and doing laundry, luxuriating in the simple pleasure of moving about in a warm space. By the time she began getting ready for her outing with Elijah, she had resolved to put aside her worries for the day and simply enjoy whatever was developing between them. Life had taught her that good things were often fleeting, all the more reason to appreciate them while they lasted. At 2:25, she waited in the lobby of her building, dressed in her warmest clothes and Elijah's blanket repurposed as a scarf. When his car pulled up, she stepped outside, her heart beating a little faster at the sight of him coming around to open her door. "You look lovely," he said, his eyes taking in the way the deep blue of his blanket complemented her dark skin. "Creative repurposing," Maya said with a smile, gesturing to the makeshift scarf. "I hope you don't mind." "Not at all. It suits you." As they drove toward the lake, Maya found herself studying Elijah's profile, the strong line of his jaw, the slight furrow between his brows as he concentrated on the road. There was a quiet intensity about him that she found increasingly attractive, a seriousness balanced by unexpected moments of warmth and humor. "What?" he asked, catching her gaze. Maya smiled, not embarrassed at being caught staring. "Just thinking that I'm glad I sent that text to the wrong number." Elijah's expression softened. "So am I. More than you know." The lake was transformed into a winter wonderland. Ice sculptures dotted the shoreline, intricate creations that captured light and shadow in their translucent forms. Elijah and Maya walked among them, their breaths creating small clouds in the frigid air. Despite the cold, Maya felt warm in her layers and the closeness of Elijah beside her. "That one's my favorite," she said, pointing to a sculpture of a phoenix rising from flames, its wings extended in mid-flight. The ice caught the afternoon sun, giving the illusion that the bird was indeed aflame. "It's remarkable," Elijah agreed, "the balance of strength and delicacy." Maya glanced at him, surprised by the poetry in his observation. "Exactly. It looks like it might shatter with a touch, but it's solid ice, stronger than it appears." "Like you," Elijah said quietly. The simple comparison made Maya's chest tighten with emotion. She looked away, unsure how to respond to the naked admiration in his voice. They continued their stroll, stopping occasionally to admire particularly striking sculptures. Children ran past them, laughing and slipping on the packed snow. Nearby, vendors sold hot drinks and roasted chestnuts, the scents mingling enticingly in the cold air. "Hungry?" Elijah asked, noticing Maya eyeing the food stalls. "A little," she admitted. Elijah bought them each a paper cone of roasted chestnuts and cups of mulled cider. They found a bench that had been cleared of snow and sat close together, warming their hands on the steaming cups. "I used to come here as a child," Elijah said, peeling a chestnut. "My mother loved the ice sculptures. She would bring me every year, even after she and my father separated." "You haven't mentioned your mother before," Maya observed. "Are you still close?" A shadow crossed Elijah's face. "She died when I was 16. Cancer." "I'm sorry," Maya said softly, recognizing the familiar pain in his eyes. "That's too young to lose a parent." "Any age is too young," Elijah replied, his gaze meeting hers with understanding. "But yes, 16 was difficult. My father and I were never close. Suddenly being left with just him was challenging for both of us." "Is that why you took over the company? To please him?" Elijah considered the question, absently rolling a chestnut between his fingers. "Partly. It was expected, certainly. The Monroe heir carrying on the family business." He paused. "But I also saw it as an opportunity to make changes, to take what my father had built and transform it into something that reflected my mother's values more than his." "What were her values?" "Compassion. Service. She believed wealth was a responsibility, not a privilege." A small smile touched his lips. "She would have approved of how we met, me helping a stranger in need." "I wish I could have known her," Maya said, meaning it. "She sounds like an amazing woman." "She would have liked you," Elijah said with certainty. "She had a gift for seeing people, really seeing them, beyond surface appearances." The implication that he saw her the same way warmed Maya more than the cider in her hands. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching children attempt to ice skate on a small rink set up near the shore. "Do you skate?" Elijah asked eventually. Maya laughed. "I've never tried. Not many skating opportunities in my neighborhood growing up." "Would you like to?" Before Maya could respond, A commotion near the parking lot caught their attention. A small crowd had gathered, and raised voices carried across the snow. Elijah frowned, standing to get a better view. "Stay here," he said, moving toward the disturbance. Maya watched as he approached the crowd, which parted slightly at his arrival. From her bench, she could see a young woman with a child, seemingly in some kind of confrontation with a parking attendant. Elijah spoke to both parties, his posture calm but authoritative. After a brief exchange, he took out his wallet and handed something to the attendant, who nodded and walked away. The woman said something to Elijah, gesturing gratefully, then took her child's hand and headed toward the ice sculptures. When Elijah returned to the bench, Maya raised an eyebrow in question. "Car got towed," he explained. "Single mother, couldn't afford the fee. They're not from here. Drove 2 hours for her son to see the sculptures for a school project." "So you paid the fee?" Maya asked, already knowing the answer. Elijah shrugged, slightly embarrassed. It seemed the simplest solution. Maya studied him, a new understanding dawning. "You do this a lot, don't you?" "Help strangers." "When I can," he admitted. "It's not entirely altruistic. My mother used to say that giving to others was the best cure for self-absorption." He smiled ruefully. "And running a corporation comes with a certain risk of that." "Still," Maya said softly, "it's a choice. One that many in your position wouldn't make." Elijah looked uncomfortable with her praise. "About that skating lesson," he said, clearly changing the subject. Maya laughed, allowing the deflection. "I don't know. I'm not particularly graceful on solid ground, let alone ice." "I'll hold you up," Elijah promised, extending his hand. "Trust me?" The question felt weighted with meaning beyond the immediate context. Maya looked at his outstretched hand, then up into his eyes, warm and earnest despite the cold. "I trust you," she said, placing her hand in his. The skating rink was small and crowded, but Elijah secured rental skates and found them a spot along the rail. Maya clutched it desperately as she took her first tentative steps onto the ice, her ankles wobbling alarmingly. "I'm going to fall and break something," she predicted, knuckles white on the railing. "No, you won't," Elijah said calmly, positioning himself in front of her. He took both her hands in his. "Let go of the rail. I've got you." Reluctantly, Maya released the railing, immediately grabbing Elijah's forearms for support. He was solid and stable on the ice, clearly experienced. "That's it," he encouraged. "Now, small steps, don't try to walk, more of a glide." Under his patient guidance, Maya gradually gained confidence. They moved slowly around the perimeter of the rink, Elijah skating backward with easy grace while Maya focused intently on staying upright. When she finally dared to look up from her feet, she found him watching her with a mixture of amusement and something warmer, more intimate. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "You're doing great," he said. "Ready to try on your own?" "Absolutely not," Maya replied firmly, tightening her grip on his arms. Elijah laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "Fair enough." They continued around the rink several more times until Maya's legs began to ache from the unfamiliar exertion. As they returned their skates, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the snow and illuminating the ice sculptures with golden light. "Hungry?" Elijah asked as they walked back toward the parking lot. Maya nodded, suddenly aware of the hollowness in her stomach. "Starving, actually. There's a good restaurant not far from here. Nothing fancy, but the food is excellent." The restaurant was a cozy log cabin set back from the main road, its windows glowing warmly against the gathering darkness. Inside, a fire crackled in a stone hearth, and the scent of hearty home-cooked food filled the air. They were seated at a corner table, and Maya relaxed into the rustic wooden chair, grateful to rest her tired legs. "I may never walk normally again," she groaned, stretching her feet toward the fire. "I think I discovered muscles I didn't know existed." "You did remarkably well for a first-timer," Elijah assured her, his eyes crinkling with amusement. "Most people spend more time on the ice than upright. Only because you didn't let me fall. I promised I wouldn't." The simple statement, delivered with such quiet certainty, made Maya's heart skip. There was something so solid about Elijah, so dependable. It was a quality she had rarely encountered in her life, where people tended to disappear when things got difficult. They ordered hearty stew for Maya, grilled fish for Elijah, and settled into easy conversation. As they ate, Maya found herself opening up about her childhood, her father's abandonment when she was 8, her mother's struggle to raise her alone on a teacher's salary, the tight-knit community of their neighborhood that had helped fill the gaps. "We didn't have much," she explained, "but I never felt poor until I got to high school and realized other kids didn't wear secondhand clothes or worry about the electricity being shut off." Elijah listened intently, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than pity. In turn, he shared more about his own upbringing, the privilege tempered by emotional neglect from his father, the warmth and guidance of his mother, the loneliness of being an only child in a vast, often empty house. "We had everything," he said, "except time together as a family. My father was always working, building the company. My mother tried to compensate, but after the divorce I only saw her on weekends." "And yet you followed in your father's footsteps," Maya observed. "With a different approach," Elijah clarified. "I'm trying to build something my mother would have been proud of, a company that values people as much as profit." "Is that even possible in today's economy?" "I believe it is. Difficult, but possible. It requires convincing shareholders that ethical practices and employee welfare contribute to long-term sustainability. Some get it, others are more resistant. Like the board members who wanted to cut health benefits," Maya recalled. Elijah nodded. "Exactly. It's a constant battle, but one worth fighting." As they finished their meal, Maya noticed several other diners casting curious glances their way. She was acutely aware of how they must appear, Elijah in his designer clothes, herself in her well-worn coat and makeshift scarf, an unlikely pair by any measure. "People are staring," she murmured, suddenly self-conscious. Elijah glanced around, then back at her with a reassuring smile. "They're staring because you're beautiful, nothing more." The compliment, delivered so matter-of-factly, caught Maya off guard. She felt heat rise to her cheeks and looked down at her empty bowl. "That's not it, and you know it." "Maya." Elijah's voice was gentle but firm, drawing her eyes back to his. "Whatever anyone else thinks doesn't matter. What matters is here, between us." "And what is that exactly?" Maya asked, the question that had been hovering between them finally voiced. Elijah held her gaze, his expression serious. "I'm not entirely sure yet, but I know I want to find out, if you do too." The honesty of his answer touched her. There were no glib assurances, no false promises, just an acknowledgement of something real and undefined growing between them. "I do," she said softly. "I just worry." "About the differences between us," Elijah finished for her. "I understand. But perhaps those differences are less important than what we share." "And what's that?" "Values, experiences with loss, a desire for something meaningful." He reached across the table, his fingers lightly touching hers. "A connection I wasn't expecting, but am very glad to have found." Maya turned her hand, allowing their fingers to intertwine. The gesture was small but significant, an acknowledgement of possibilities neither had anticipated when she sent that first mistaken text. As they drove back toward the city, the comfortable silence between them felt charged with potential. Maya watched the snow-covered landscape pass by, aware of Elijah's presence beside her with an intensity that both thrilled and unsettled her. They were from different worlds, yet in the space of a few weeks, he had become important to her in ways she couldn't fully articulate. When they reached her apartment building, Elijah parked but made no move to get out. "I've enjoyed today," he said, turning toward her in the dim light of the car. "So have I," Maya replied. "Thank you. May I see you again? Tuesday, perhaps?" Maya nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I'd like that." They sat for a moment, the air between them heavy with unspoken words and desires. Then, with gentle hesitation, Elijah leaned forward, his hand coming up to lightly cup her cheek. Maya's breath caught as he paused, his eyes questioning. In answer, she closed the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was soft and searching. When they parted, Elijah's expression was one of wonder, as if he'd discovered something precious and unexpected. "Good night, Maya," he said softly. "Good night, Elijah," she replied, reluctantly reaching for the door handle. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Maya's lips still tingled from their kiss. She knew there were complications ahead, questions to be answered about what could realistically develop between them. But for tonight, she allowed herself to simply feel the joy of connection, the hope of something beautiful taking root in the most unlikely of circumstances. Over the next few weeks, Maya and Elijah's relationship deepened through a series of carefully arranged meetings that worked around Maya's hectic schedule. They shared dinners in quiet restaurants where Elijah was less likely to be recognized, took walks in the city's parks, and spent one memorable evening at his downtown penthouse watching old movies until Maya fell asleep on his impossibly comfortable couch. Each encounter revealed new layers to their connection. Maya discovered that beneath Elijah's composed exterior was a man with a dry sense of humor and passionate opinions about everything from environmental policy to the proper way to brew coffee. Elijah, in turn, was continually surprised by Maya's resilience and insight, her ability to see beauty in the ordinary moments he often overlooked. They were careful to keep their relationship private, both aware of the scrutiny it would invite. Elijah had mentioned casually that the board was particularly attentive to his personal life, concerned about anything that might affect company image. Maya understood the unspoken implication. A CEO dating a waitress from the wrong side of town would raise eyebrows at best, create a scandal at worst. For her part, Maya guarded their relationship from her co-workers and the few friends she had time to maintain. She wasn't ready for the questions, the assumptions, the inevitable warnings about getting her heart broken. This fragile, growing thing between them felt too precious to expose to outside judgment. One evening in early March, they sat in Elijah's living room, takeout containers scattered on the coffee table between them. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city spread below them, a tapestry of lights against the darkening sky. Maya was telling Elijah about a particularly difficult customer at the diner when his phone rang. "I'm sorry, I need to take this," he said after checking the screen. "It's the hospital." Maya nodded, immediately concerned. Elijah stepped onto the balcony, closing the door behind him. Through the glass, she could see him pacing, his expression growing increasingly tense as the conversation continued. When he finally returned, his face was drawn. "My father's had another stroke," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "They don't think he'll regain consciousness this time." "Oh, Elijah." Maya moved to him immediately, wrapping her arms around his rigid frame. "I'm so sorry." He stood stiffly for a moment before his arms came around her, his face burying in her hair. They stayed like that for several minutes, Maya offering silent comfort as Elijah's breathing gradually steadied. "I should go to the hospital," he said, finally pulling back. "They say it could be hours or days." "Of course, I'll go with you." Elijah hesitated, something complicated passing across his face. "Maya, my father's room will be full of board members, business associates. My father's second wife will be there." The meaning was clear, though he struggled to voice it directly. Maya stepped back, trying not to show how much the implied exclusion hurt. "I understand," she said quietly. "You need to focus on your father, not explain our friendship to everyone." Relief and guilt warred in Elijah's expression. "It's not that I'm ashamed of you, it's just complicated," Maya finished for him. "I get it, really." "I'll call you as soon as I can," he promised, reaching for his jacket. Maya nodded, gathering her own things. As they rode the elevator down to the lobby, the silence between them was heavier than usual, laden with unspoken tensions and realizations. At the entrance to the building, Elijah arranged for his driver to take Maya home before heading to the hospital himself. "Maya," he said just before she got into the car, "thank you for understanding." She managed a small smile. "That's what friends do, right?" The word felt insufficient, almost dishonest given the intimacy they'd developed, but it was safer than alternatives neither was ready to voice. Back in her apartment, Maya found herself unable to sleep, turning over the events of the evening in her mind. She understood Elijah's position. Truly, she did. His father was dying, and this was not the time to introduce complications. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that tonight had revealed a fundamental truth about their relationship, that regardless of their personal connection, the world would always see them as mismatched, inappropriate. Her phone buzzed around midnight with a text from Elijah. "He's stable for now. They're running tests. I'll be here all night." Maya replied immediately, "Try to rest if you can. I'm here if you need anything." 3 days passed with minimal communication. Elijah sent brief updates on his father's condition, which remained critical but unchanged. Maya responded with words of support, careful not to demand more of his attention than he could give. She threw herself into her work, picking up extra shifts to fill the sudden emptiness in her evenings. On the 4th day, as Maya was finishing her shift at the diner, her phone rang with Elijah's number. "He's gone," Elijah said without preamble, his voice hollow. "An hour ago." "I'm so sorry, Elijah. Where are you now?" "Still at the hospital. There's paperwork, arrangements to be made." He sounded exhausted, distant. "The next few days will be chaotic. The funeral will be significant. My father knew a lot of people." "Of course. Take whatever time you need. I'm here when you want to talk." There was a pause, the silence heavy with everything unsaid. "Thank you, Maya. I'll call when I can." The call ended, leaving Maya with a sense of helplessness. She wanted to comfort him, to be there as he had been for her when she'd shared stories of her mother's passing. But the barriers between their worlds seemed suddenly more substantial, the differences in their circumstances more pronounced. The next week passed in a blur of activity for Elijah, glimpsed by Maya primarily through news reports and social media. Harold Monroe's death made headlines, his funeral attended by business leaders, politicians, and celebrities. Photos showed Elijah, solemn in a black suit, standing beside a striking older woman identified as his stepmother and accepting condolences from a parade of important figures. Through it all, their communication remained minimal. Brief texts from Elijah apologizing for his absence, assuring her he would reach out when things settled. Maya responded with understanding, pushing down the growing fear that this separation was a preview of their inevitable end. 10 days after Harold Monroe's death, as Maya was leaving the convenience store after her evening shift, a familiar black car pulled up beside her. The window lowered to reveal Elijah, his face tired but his eyes warming at the sight of her. "Can I give you a ride home?" he asked, the simple question loaded with meaning after their time apart. Maya nodded, sliding into the passenger seat. Up close, she could see the toll the past days had taken on him, new lines around his eyes, a certain tightness to his mouth that hadn't been there before. "I've missed you," he said quietly as they pulled away from the curb. "I've missed you too. How are you holding up?" Elijah sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's been intense. The funeral was a public event more than a personal one. Everyone wanted to talk business, to assess how my father's death would affect the company. Very few people were actually mourning the man." "That sounds terrible," Maya said, reaching over to touch his arm. It was what he would have expected, what he would have wanted even. Elijah's mouth twisted in a humorless smile. "My father valued his business legacy above all else." And now that legacy is yours completely. Yes. The single word carried weight, a recognition of the increased responsibilities now firmly on his shoulders. The board is watching me closely. Some members have been waiting for an opportunity to challenge my leadership, to push back against the changes I've been implementing. Maya nodded, understanding the precarious position he was in. What happens now? Meetings, strategy sessions, public statements to reassure investors. Elijah glanced at her, his expression softening. But tonight, I just wanted to see you. To remember there's more to life than Monroe Technologies. They reached Maya's apartment building, but instead of saying goodbye, Elijah put the car in park and turned to face her fully. Would you like to come up? Maya asked, surprised by her own boldness. Elijah's expression was a mixture of desire and hesitation. Are you sure? In answer, Maya leaned across the console and kissed him, a gesture of both comfort and invitation. When they parted, Elijah's eyes had darkened, his resolve visibly weakening. "Lead the way," he said, his voice slightly rough. Maya's apartment, though clean and now comfortably warm, was a stark contrast to Elijah's penthouse. The furniture was mismatched and worn, the space cramped by necessity. She watched nervously as Elijah took it in, afraid to see judgment or pity in his expression. Instead, he smiled as his gaze landed on a small bookshelf crammed with well-loved paperbacks and medical textbooks. "This is very you," he said, running his fingers along the book spines. "Practical, but with room for dreams." The observation, so perceptive and free of condescension, eased Maya's tension. She moved to the tiny kitchenette. "Tea? It's nothing fancy, just—" Her words were cut off as Elijah crossed the room in 2 strides, taking her face in his hands and kissing her with an intensity that left her breathless. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers, his breathing unsteady. "I don't care about fancy," he murmured. "I care about you." What followed was a night of tender discoveries, of comfort sought and given, of barriers finally crossed. In the narrow bed that barely accommodated them both, they found a connection that transcended their differences, a shared language of touch and whispered words that needed no translation across social divides. Later, as they lay tangled together in the pre-dawn darkness, Elijah traced patterns on Maya's bare shoulder, his touch reverent. "What are you thinking?" Maya asked, her head resting on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. "That I've never felt this way before," he admitted quietly. "With anyone." Maya lifted her head to look at him, searching his face in the dim light filtering through her thin curtains. "Neither have I." "I know the timing is terrible," Elijah continued, his fingers moving to cup her cheek. "With my father's death, the scrutiny on the company, on me." "It's okay," Maya said, though a knot of anxiety formed in her stomach. "We can take things slowly." Elijah shook his head, his expression serious. "That's not what I'm saying. I don't want to hide what I feel for you, Maya. I don't want to sneak around as if this is something shameful." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to do this properly. I want to take you to dinner at restaurants where I might be recognized. I want to bring you to company events. I want to introduce you to people in my life." The declaration, spoken with such certainty, left Maya speechless. She had assumed their relationship would continue as it had been, private, separate from Elijah's public life, a secret joy rather than an acknowledged partnership. "Are you sure?" she finally asked. "The board, the press, they won't be kind about this, about me." "I don't care," Elijah said fiercely. "My father lived his entire life worried about appearances, about what others would think. I watched it destroy his marriage to my mother, watched it hollow him out until the company was all he had left." He took her hands in his. "I don't want that life, Maya. I want something real." The conviction in his voice was unmistakable, yet Maya couldn't quite silence the doubts whispering in her mind. She had seen the world Elijah inhabited, if only through news reports and photographs. It was a world of wealth and privilege, of unspoken rules and judgments. A world that would look at her and see only her background, her economic status, her lack of pedigree. "What if it's too hard?" she whispered. "What if the pressure is too much?" Elijah's eyes held hers, unwavering. "Then we'll face it together. I'm not saying it will be easy, but I think what we have is worth fighting for. Don't you?" The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Maya thought of the past weeks, of the joy Elijah had brought into her life, of the way he saw her, truly saw her. When so many others looked right through her, she thought of how it felt to be valued not for what she could give or do, but simply for who she was. "Yes," she said finally, certainty replacing doubt. "I do." Elijah's smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. He kissed her again, a promise sealed without words. As Maya melted into his embrace, she allowed herself to believe, just for this moment, that love might indeed be enough to bridge the worlds between them. The next morning brought reality crashing back with the insistent beeping of Maya's alarm. She reached over to silence it, careful not to wake Elijah, who slept soundly beside her. In the harsh light of day, her apartment seemed even smaller, its flaws more apparent: the water stain on the ceiling, the cracked linoleum in the kitchen, the second-hand furniture that had seemed adequate until viewed through the lens of what Elijah was accustomed to. She slipped quietly from bed and into the bathroom, wincing at the squeal of the faucet as she turned on the shower. The hot water lasted barely 5 minutes, forcing her to finish rinsing her hair in a cold spray that left her shivering. Wrapped in her threadbare towel, she studied her reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror, noting the dark circles under her eyes from too little sleep and the mark Elijah's stubble had left on her neck. When she emerged, she found Elijah awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with his phone in hand, his expression troubled. "Everything okay?" she asked, clutching the towel more tightly around her. He looked up, his face clearing as he took her in. "Just work. The usual crisis demanding immediate attention." He set the phone aside and stood, crossing to her in 2 strides. His hands came to rest on her shoulders, warm and reassuring. "Good morning." "Morning," she replied, suddenly shy despite the intimacy they'd shared hours before. "I have to get ready for work. My shift starts at 9. "Let me take you to breakfast first." Maya hesitated, thinking of her depleted bank account and the bills due next week. "I usually just grab coffee at the diner." "My treat," Elijah insisted, his thumb tracing the line of her collarbone. "After last night, the least I can do is feed you." The way he said it, light, teasing without a hint of condescension, eased Maya's discomfort. She smiled, rising on tiptoes to kiss him quickly. "Okay, but I need to be at work by 9. I'll have you there on time. Promise." They settled on a small cafe a few blocks from the diner. As they walked, Elijah took her hand naturally, his fingers intertwining with hers. The simple gesture sent a flutter through Maya's stomach. It was the first time they'd displayed affection so openly in public. The cafe was busy with the morning rush, but they found a small table near the window. Maya ordered a simple breakfast of eggs and toast, while Elijah opted for the full spread: pancakes, bacon, eggs, and fresh fruit. When the food arrived, he pushed the plate of fruit toward the center of the table. "Share with me? The berries look good." Maya took a strawberry, savoring its sweetness. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Elijah spoke again. "I meant what I said last night, Maya, about not hiding." She set down her fork, meeting his serious gaze. "I know you did, and I want to believe it's possible. But you have doubts. Don't you?" she countered gently. "Elijah, we come from completely different worlds. That doesn't disappear just because we care about each other." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I'm not naive. I know there will be challenges. People will talk, make assumptions. The board might worry about how it affects the company image. And that doesn't concern you? Of course it does. But I refuse to let other people's perceptions dictate my personal happiness. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. My father did that his entire life, married the right woman after my mother, cultivated the right friendships, all to maintain an image that would please shareholders and business partners. And he died a lonely, bitter man. Maya turned her hand to squeeze his, touched by the pain she could hear beneath his words. I don't want that for you, but I also don't want to be the reason your professional life becomes more difficult. You won't be, Elijah assured her. The company is stable, profitable. I've proven myself over the past 4 years. The board might grumble, but as long as the numbers stay good, they can't touch me. Maya wanted to believe him, but a lifetime of practical experience made her wary of such optimism. Still, looking at his confident expression, she found herself nodding. Okay, no more hiding. Elijah's smile was radiant. Good. In that case, would you accompany me to the Monroe Foundation Gala next Saturday? It's an annual charity event my mother started, supporting educational programs in underserved communities. The invitation, so casual yet significant, caught Maya off guard. A gala? Like fancy dresses and champagne? Exactly like that, Elijah confirmed, amusement dancing in his eyes at her expression. Don't worry, I'll take care of the dress. I have a friend who's a designer. She can help. Maya stiffened, her pride immediately bristling. I don't need you to dress me, Elijah. He blinked, realizing his misstep. That's not what I meant. I just thought that I couldn't afford something suitable. You're right, I can't. But that doesn't mean I want to be your charity case. Maya, Elijah said softly, that's not how I see you. Never that. She sighed, aware that her reaction was disproportionate but unable to entirely suppress the insecurity his casual offer had triggered. I know. I'm sorry. It's just, these differences between us, they keep coming up in unexpected ways. Then we'll talk through them, figure it out together. His expression turned thoughtful. What if we approach it differently? The foundation has a budget for the event, including for special guests who help promote its mission. As a nursing student who had to leave school due to financial constraints, you're exactly the kind of person the foundation aims to help. Your attendance could be officially as a speaker, sharing your experience. Maya considered the suggestion. Framed that way, it felt less like charity and more like a meaningful contribution. I could talk about the barriers to education for low-income students, she said slowly. The impossible choices people have to make when financial aid isn't enough. Exactly. Elijah's expression brightened. Your perspective would be valuable to our donors, and as a speaker, having appropriate attire would be a legitimate foundation expense. The compromise was elegant, allowing Maya to maintain her dignity while addressing the practical reality of their situation. Okay, she agreed. I'll do it. Wonderful. Elijah glanced at his watch. We should get you to work. I'll text you later with details about meeting the designer. As they walked to the diner, Maya's mind raced with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. A gala meant meeting Elijah's colleagues, business associates, friends, people who moved in circles she could barely imagine. It was a significant step, a public declaration of their relationship that couldn't be easily walked back. Despite her lingering concerns, the thought filled her with a cautious hope. At the diner entrance, Elijah kissed her goodbye, a brief but unmistakable gesture that drew curious glances from her co-workers visible through the window. As he walked back to his car, Maya took a deep breath, steeling herself for the questions that would inevitably follow. Sure enough, Denise pounced the moment Maya entered the staff room to store her coat and bag. Well, well, the older woman said, eyes twinkling. Looks like someone's moving up in the world. Maya kept her tone light as she tied on her apron. He's just a friend, Denise. Honey, I've been around long enough to know that men like that don't give just friends the kind of look he was giving you. Denise's expression softened. He seems nice. Rich as sin, obviously, but nice. He is, Maya agreed, unable to suppress a small smile. Both of those things. Just be careful, okay? Men like that, they live in a different world. I'm not saying it can't work, but I know, Maya interrupted gently. Believe me, I know. The shift passed in a blur of coffee refills and order tickets, but Maya's mind kept returning to the gala. By the time her break rolled around, she had worked herself into a state of nervous anticipation. Sitting in the back alley with a cup of lukewarm coffee, she searched on her phone for information about the Monroe Foundation Gala. The images that appeared showed an event of breathtaking opulence. Women in designer gowns, men in impeccable tuxedos, a venue dripping with flowers and crystal. Last year's gala had raised over $2 million for educational initiatives, with a guest list that included CEOs, celebrities, and politicians. Maya zoomed in on a photo of Elijah in a black tuxedo, standing beside a statuesque blonde woman in a red gown. The caption identified her as socialite Vanessa Chamberlain, rumored to be romantically linked to eligible bachelor Elijah Monroe. Maya stared at the image, a knot forming in her stomach. The woman was stunning, poised, polished, perfectly at ease in the glamorous setting. Everything Maya was not. Though she knew Elijah's feelings for her were genuine, seeing this glimpse of his world, and the type of woman who naturally inhabited it, shook her confidence. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elijah. Meeting set with Sophia at her studio tomorrow at 10 a.m. She's excited to meet you. Maya typed back, "Who is Vanessa Chamberlain?" There was a long pause before Elijah's response. "A family friend. Why do you ask?" "I saw photos from last year's gala. You were together." Another pause. "We attended together, yes. It was never serious. The press likes to create stories where there aren't any." Maya hesitated, then decided honesty was essential if they were going to navigate the complexities of their relationship. "She looks like she belongs in your world in a way I never will." Elijah's reply came quickly. "My world is what I make it, Maya, and I want you in it. Can I call you after your shift?" "Yes, I'm done at 5. The remainder of her workday passed slowly, Maya's thoughts oscillating between excitement about the gala and anxiety about fitting into Elijah's life. By the time she clocked out, she had resolved to be honest about her fears rather than letting them fester. Elijah called as she was walking home. "Hey," he said, his voice warm through the phone. "How was your shift?" "Busy. Tips were good, though." Maya took a deep breath. "Elijah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." "Always," he promised, his tone turning serious. "Are you sure about this? About us? Because once we go public at this gala, there's no turning back. People will talk. They'll judge. They'll question your judgment, maybe even your sanity for dating someone like me." "Someone like you," Elijah repeated, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. "Maya, do you know what I see when I look at you? I see a woman of extraordinary strength and grace, someone who has faced challenges I can barely imagine and emerged with her compassion intact. I see intelligence, determination, beauty, inside and out." Maya stopped walking, his words washing over her like a balm. "Elijah, I know this won't be easy," he continued. "I know there will be people who won't understand, but I am absolutely certain about how I feel about you. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The conviction in his voice dissolved the knot of anxiety in Maya's chest. "Okay," she said softly. "I believe you." "Good." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Now, about tomorrow. Sophia is a dear friend and an incredible designer. She's going to love you." "I hope so," Maya said, resuming her walk home. "I don't exactly have a lot of experience with fashion designers. Just be yourself. That's more than enough." They talked until Maya reached her apartment, discussing details for the next day and plans for the gala. By the time they said goodbye, Maya felt more centered, her earlier doubts not entirely banished but significantly diminished by Elijah's unwavering certainty. The next morning, Maya stood outside an unassuming building in the city's arts district, double-checking the address Elijah had sent. A discreet plaque beside the door read simply, "Sophia," in elegant script. Maya smoothed her hands over her best jeans and the blue blouse she'd worn for her first meeting with Elijah, took a deep breath, and pressed the buzzer. The door was opened moments later by a tiny woman with a shock of silver hair cut in a stylish bob. Despite being at least in her 60s, she radiated energy and wore an eclectic outfit of flowing black pants and a structured top in a vibrant geometric print. "You must be Maya," she said, her accent hinting at Mediterranean origins. Come in, come in. Elijah has told me so much about you." Maya followed her into a spacious studio filled with natural light, racks of clothing and work tables covered in sketches and fabric swatches. Sophia guided her to a seating area where coffee and pastries had been arranged. "Elijah said you take your coffee black, yes? He notices these things. It's one of the qualities I most appreciate about him." Sophia poured 2 cups from an elegant carafe. "So few people truly observe anymore." Maya accepted the coffee gratefully, warming her hands around the delicate cup. "Thank you for meeting with me, Ms. "Sophia, please," the designer interrupted with a wave of her hand. "We are going to be friends, I can already tell. Now, Elijah has explained the situation. You need something spectacular for the gala, where you'll be speaking about educational access. A worthy cause, very close to my heart as well." Maya nodded, relaxing slightly at the woman's warm manner. "I've never attended anything like this before. I'm a bit nervous. Naturally. But also exciting, no? To step into a new experience?" Sophia's keen eyes studied Maya, professional assessment mixing with genuine interest. "You have a beautiful form, strong shoulders, elegant neck, and your skin. That rich mahogany with those remarkable amber eyes. We must find something that complements these natural gifts." For the next hour, Sophia guided Maya through various styles and fabrics, taking measurements and making sketches with lightning speed. Unlike the salespeople in department stores who had made Maya feel out of place on the rare occasions she ventured into their territory, Sophia treated her with respect and consideration, explaining her choices and soliciting Maya's opinion. "Nothing too revealing," Maya said when presented with a design that featured a plunging neckline. "I want to be taken seriously as a speaker." Sophia nodded approvingly. "Wise. Elegance with modesty can make a more powerful statement than overt sexuality. What about this?" She showed Maya a sketch of a gown with clean lines, a high neckline, and an open back, sophisticated but with an unexpected element of allure. "It's beautiful," Maya breathed, already able to envision herself in the design. "In a deep emerald, I think," Sophia mused, "to bring out the gold in your eyes, and will keep the accessories minimal. You have natural beauty that doesn't need much embellishment." By the end of the appointment, Maya felt a curious mixture of excitement and apprehension. The gown Sophia had designed was more beautiful than anything she'd ever owned, and the designer's confidence in her ability to carry it was flattering. Yet the reality of what lay ahead, stepping into Elijah's world, being scrutinized by his peers, remained daunting. As if reading her thoughts, Sophia took Maya's hands in her own as they said goodbye. "You will be magnificent," she said firmly. "Remember, true elegance comes not from what you wear, but from how you carry yourself. And from what Elijah tells me, you have more grace and dignity than most of the people who will be at that gala." "Thank you," Maya said, genuinely touched by the older woman's kindness. "For everything." "It is my pleasure. Elijah is like family to me. His mother was my dearest friend. I have not seen him this happy in many years." Sophia's eyes twinkled. "You are good for him, I think. You see the man, not the fortune." As Maya left the studio, those words echoed in her mind. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was certain of one thing. Her feelings for Elijah were rooted in the person he was, not the position he held. She only hoped that would be enough to weather the storm their relationship was likely to provoke. The day of the gala arrived with a flurry of activity. Maya had arranged to take the entire day off from both jobs, an extravagance that made her nervous, but that Elijah had insisted was necessary. "You need time to prepare properly," he'd said. "No rushing from a shift to the most important charity event of the year." At noon, a sleek black car arrived to take her to a downtown hotel where she would prepare. Elijah had explained that many of the female attendees spent the day being pampered by professionals, hairstylists, makeup artists, manicurists, and he wanted her to have the same experience. Though Maya had initially protested the expense, he gently pointed out that as a speaker representing the foundation, her appearance was part of the overall presentation. "Think of it as part of your job for the evening," he'd suggested, and Maya had reluctantly agreed, understanding that this was one of those moments where her pride needed to bend to accommodate the realities of Elijah's world. The hotel suite was luxurious beyond anything Maya had experienced, all cream carpets and golden accents, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Sophia arrived shortly after Maya, bringing the completed gown in a garment bag that she hung reverently in the bedroom. "Not until later," she said when Maya moved to peek inside. "First we prepare the canvas, then we add the masterpiece." A team of beauty professionals descended on the suite, transforming it into a makeshift salon. Maya submitted to their ministrations with a mixture of amusement and awe, the careful attention to every detail, from the precise shape of her nails to the intricate updo that showcased her elegant neck while framing her face with soft tendrils. The makeup artist, a young man with a critical eye and gentle hands, worked methodically, enhancing Maya's natural beauty rather than attempting to transform her. "These cheekbones," he murmured as he applied a subtle highlighter. "People pay thousands for what you were born with." By late afternoon, Maya hardly recognized the woman in the mirror, not because she looked fundamentally different, but because she had never seen herself presented with such polished perfection. Her honey-colored eyes seemed to glow against her dark skin, her lips softly defined in a shade that enhanced their natural fullness. Sophia supervised the entire process with an artist's attention to detail, occasionally redirecting a hairstylist's efforts or suggesting a lighter hand with the blush. When she was finally satisfied, she dismissed the team and turned to Maya with a smile of anticipation. "Now," she said, "the gown." With Sophia's help, Maya stepped into the creation, a column of rich emerald silk that flowed like water over her curves. The high neckline gave way to a completely open back that dipped dangerously low, revealing the elegant line of her spine. The effect was dramatic yet restrained, sensual without being overtly sexual. "Perfect," Sophia pronounced as she fastened the last hook. "Now the finishing touches." From a velvet box, she produced a simple pair of diamond drop earrings and a matching bracelet. "On loan from the Foundation's collection," she explained as she fastened them to Maya's ears. "Many of the women tonight will be dripping in jewels, but true elegance knows that less is more." The final addition was a pair of stiletto heels in a slightly darker green than the dress. Maya practiced walking in them, grateful for Sophia's steadying hand as she adjusted to the height. "Remember to take small steps," the designer advised. "It's more elegant and will prevent any mishaps on the red carpet." "Red carpet?" Maya's eyes widened. No one mentioned a red carpet. Sophia patted her arm reassuringly. "Just a small one. Local press only, not national. Elijah will be by your side the entire time." As if summoned by his name, there was a knock at the suite door. Sophia went to answer it, returning moments later with Elijah, resplendent in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. He stopped short when he saw Maya, his expression shifting from polite anticipation to stunned appreciation. "Maya," he said softly, crossing the room to take her hands. "You look incredible." Despite all the professional attention she'd received throughout the day, it was Elijah's sincere admiration that finally made Maya feel truly beautiful. "So do you," she replied, taking in the elegant lines of his tuxedo, the way it emphasized his broad shoulders and trim waist. "I'll leave you two," Sophia announced, gathering her things. "Maya, remember what we discussed. Small steps, chin up, shoulders back. You are representing not just yourself tonight, but all the young women who might benefit from the Foundation's work." After the designer's departure, Elijah drew Maya into a gentle embrace, careful not to disturb her carefully styled hair. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his breath warm against her temple. "As I'll ever be," Maya replied, her stomach fluttering with nerves. "Is it too late to back out?" Elijah chuckled, pulling back to look at her. "Much too late. The program already lists you as our special guest speaker." His expression grew serious. "You'll be amazing, Maya. Just speak from the heart, as you do with me." The ride to the gala venue, a historic hotel in the city's most prestigious district, was surreal. Streets Maya had walked countless times seemed transformed when viewed from the back of a luxury car, dressed in couture. Elijah held her hand throughout the journey, his thumb tracing reassuring circles on her palm. "Who else will be speaking tonight?" Maya asked, seeking distraction from her growing nerves. "The mayor will make brief remarks. I'll introduce the Foundation's work for the year, then you, followed by the chair of the board announcing this year's fundraising target." Elijah squeezed her hand. "Your portion is the most important, putting a human face to our mission." As the car pulled up to the venue, Maya caught her first glimpse of the red carpet Sophia had mentioned. It wasn't Hollywood scale, but there were several photographers and a few reporters with microphones, all positioned behind velvet ropes. Well-dressed couples moved slowly along the carpet, stopping occasionally to pose or answer questions. "Remember," Elijah said as the car door opened, "they're here because they support the Foundation's work. This isn't about judgment or scrutiny, it's about celebration and purpose." Maya nodded, taking a deep breath as she accepted the hand of the doorman who helped her from the car. The cool evening air brushed against her exposed back, a reminder of her unusual state of undress. She straightened her shoulders as Elijah came to stand beside her, offering his arm. "Ready?" he asked quietly. In answer, Maya placed her hand on his arm, lifting her chin and summoning a smile that belied her inner trembling. Together, they stepped onto the red carpet. The first few minutes passed in a blur of flashing cameras and polite greetings. Elijah moved them skillfully along the carpet, pausing briefly for photos but declining most interview requests with a charming, "Perhaps later, we don't want to be late for the beginning of the program." Inside the ballroom, the scene was even more opulent than Maya had imagined. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables adorned with elaborate floral centerpieces. Waitstaff in formal attire circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. A string quartet played softly in one corner, providing elegant background music to the hum of conversation. "Elijah!" A booming voice caught their attention. A portly man in his 60s approached, his ruddy face suggesting he'd already enjoyed several drinks. "There you are, my boy. The board's been asking for you." "Marcus," Elijah greeted him with a practiced smile. "May I introduce Maya Johnson? Maya, this is Marcus Hightower, chairman of the Monroe Foundation Board." Maya extended her hand, conscious of Sophia's advice about posture. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Hightower." The man's handshake was perfunctory, his gaze sliding over her with barely concealed assessment before returning to Elijah. "You're needed at the head table, Elijah. Some of our major donors are asking questions about the new initiative in the South District." "Of course. Maya will be joining us at the head table as well. She's our speaker tonight." For the first time, Hightower seemed to actually see Maya. "Speaker? On what topic?" "Educational barriers for low-income students," Maya replied, maintaining her composure despite his dismissive tone. "I was a nursing student before financial constraints forced me to withdraw." "I see." Hightower's expression made it clear that he didn't see it all. "Well, keep it brief. These people came for dinner and dancing, not a lecture on socioeconomics." As he walked away, Maya felt a surge of anger that threatened her carefully maintained poise. Elijah's hand at the small of her back was both steadying and apologetic. "I'm sorry about that," he murmured. "Marcus is old school and lacks certain social graces, but his heart is in the right place." "Is it?" Maya couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "Because he seemed more concerned with keeping wealthy donors happy than with the Foundation's actual mission." Elijah sighed. "It's complicated. The Foundation needs those donors to fund its work. Part of Marcus's job is making sure they feel appreciated." He guided her toward the head table, navigating through clusters of elegantly dressed attendees. "Try not to let him get to you. Tonight is about the bigger picture." Maya nodded, but the encounter had confirmed her worst fears about how she would be perceived in this world. Before she could dwell on it further, they reached the head table, where several couples were already seated. Elijah made introductions, and Maya was relieved to find that most of the other guests were more welcoming than Hightower had been. A woman in her 50s with silver-streaked dark hair seemed particularly interested in Maya's background. "So you were in nursing school? What specialty were you pursuing?" "Pediatrics," Maya answered, warming to the genuine interest in the woman's eyes. "I've always wanted to work with children." "A noble calling," the woman, who had introduced herself as Dr. Eleanor Pierce, a board member and practicing surgeon, said approvingly. "The Foundation has recently expanded its scholarship program for medical professionals willing to work in underserved communities. You should consider applying." Before Maya could respond, a chime sounded, signaling the start of the formal program. Elijah squeezed her hand under the table, a silent message of support, before rising to take his place at the podium. His speech was eloquent but brief, outlining the Foundation's accomplishments over the past year and its vision for the future. Maya watched with pride as he commanded the room, his passion for the work evident in every word. When he introduced her, his voice softened slightly, a subtle inflection that probably went unnoticed by most, but that warmed Maya to her core. Our next speaker knows firsthand the barriers that many talented young people face in pursuing higher education. Please welcome Maya Johnson. The applause was polite as Maya made her way to the podium, conscious of every step in her unfamiliar heels. As she faced the room full of wealthy, influential people, a moment of panic threatened to overwhelm her. Then her eyes found Elijah's, his encouraging smile steadying her nerves. "Thank you," she began, her voice stronger than she'd expected. "I stand before you today as both a success story and a cautionary tale." For the next 7 minutes, Maya spoke from the heart about her journey, her childhood dreams of becoming a nurse, the struggles to afford school while working part-time, the devastating choice to abandon her education when her mother fell ill. She spoke of the countless talented young people who never realized their potential because financial barriers proved insurmountable. "Every time a student drops out due to financial constraints, we all lose," she concluded, her gaze sweeping the room. "We lose their talents, their innovations, their care. Programs like those supported by the Monroe Foundation aren't just charity, they're investments in our collective future. Thank you for your support and for allowing me to share my story tonight." The applause that followed was warmer, more enthusiastic than her introduction had been. As Maya returned to her seat, Elijah beamed with pride, and Dr. Pierce leaned over to squeeze her arm in approval. "Beautifully said," the older woman murmured. "Remind me to talk to you later about that scholarship program." The remainder of the evening passed in a whirl of dinner courses, more speeches, and eventually dancing when the formal program concluded. Elijah led Maya onto the dance floor for a waltz, his hand warm against her bare back as they moved in perfect sync. "You were magnificent," he said, his voice low and intimate despite the crowded floor. "You had them hanging on every word." "Really? I was terrified." "It didn't show. You spoke with grace and conviction." His eyes held hers, filled with admiration and something deeper, something that made Maya's heart race. "I'm so proud to be here with you tonight." The moment was interrupted by a tap on Elijah's shoulder. A striking blonde in a form-fitting silver gown stood behind him, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Elijah, darling, I was beginning to think you were avoiding me." Maya recognized her immediately from the photos she'd seen. Vanessa Chamberlain, Elijah's date from the previous year's gala. Up close, she was even more intimidatingly perfect, with flawless skin, expertly applied makeup, and the kind of poise that came from a lifetime of privilege. "Vanessa," Elijah acknowledged, his tone cooling noticeably. "I wasn't aware you were attending tonight." "Daddy bought a table, as usual." Her gaze shifted to Maya, assessing and dismissive in a single glance. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" The slight pause before the word friend held volumes of implication. Maya felt her back stiffen even as she maintained her smile. "Maya Johnson," Elijah said, his arm tightening protectively around her waist. "My girlfriend. Maya, this is Vanessa Chamberlain, a family acquaintance." Girlfriend. The word hung in the air between them, the first time Elijah had used it to define their relationship. Despite the tension of the moment, Maya felt a flutter of pleasure at the declaration. "Charming," Vanessa said, her tone suggesting anything but. "I caught your little speech earlier. So moving. Tell me, how did you two meet? I don't recall seeing you at any of the usual events." Before Maya could respond, Elijah cut in smoothly. "Maya and I met through a mutual interest in healthcare accessibility. She brings a valuable perspective to the Foundation's work." "I'm sure she does." Vanessa's smile turned predatory. "Well, I won't keep you. The Andersons were asking after you, Elijah. Something about that joint venture you discussed last month? They're by the bar." With a final dismissive glance at Maya, she sauntered away. "I'm sorry about that," Elijah said once she was out of earshot. "Vanessa can be territorial," Maya suggested. "She looked at me like I was something she found on the bottom of her designer shoe." Elijah sighed. "Our families have known each other for generations. Her father has always hoped we'd eventually marry and unite the family businesses." His expression softened as he looked at Maya. "But I've never felt for her even a fraction of what I feel for you." The simple confession, spoken in the middle of a crowded ballroom surrounded by the elite of society, touched Maya deeply. She rose on tiptoes to kiss him lightly, a public acknowledgement of his words that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. "Girlfriend, huh?" she teased as they resumed dancing. Elijah's smile was both sheepish and certain. "Too presumptuous?" "No," Maya replied, resting her head against his shoulder. "Just right." As they moved in harmony across the dance floor, Maya was acutely aware of the eyes following them, some curious, some disapproving, some openly hostile. She had no illusions that tonight would be the only time they faced such scrutiny. If anything, this was just the beginning of the challenges their relationship would encounter. Yet in that moment, wrapped in Elijah's arms with the music swelling around them, Maya found she didn't care. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The days following the gala brought a whirlwind of change. Maya woke the morning after to find her phone flooded with notifications, social media friend requests from people she'd met at the event, a LinkedIn message from Dr. Pierce about the scholarship program she'd mentioned, and most alarmingly, several alerts from news apps mentioning her name. With growing trepidation, she opened the first link to find a Society page article about the gala, complete with photos. The headline made her stomach clench. Monroe Technologies CEO debuts waitress girlfriend at Foundation Gala. The article itself was a mixture of condescension and barely veiled speculation about their relationship. It mentioned her compelling if somewhat unpolished speech, and noted that she worked double shifts at a local diner and convenience store. Details Maya hadn't included in her remarks, which meant someone had been researching her background. Most of the photos were standard event coverage, but one in particular caught Maya's attention. Elijah looking at her while she spoke at the podium, his expression so filled with pride and tenderness that it took her breath away. Whatever the article's tone, that image told a truth the writer had missed entirely. Before she could process further, her phone rang with Elijah's number. "Have you seen the coverage?" he asked immediately, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Just the piece in the City Herald," Maya replied, trying to keep her tone light. "Not exactly flattering, but I expected worse." "I'm so sorry, Maya. I knew there would be attention, but the tone of some of these articles..." He trailed off, frustration evident in his voice. "This isn't fair to you." "Hey," Maya said softly. "We knew this might happen, remember? I'm okay, really." There was a pause before Elijah spoke again, his voice gentler. "You're remarkable, you know that? Most people would be furious or hurt." "Oh, I'm both of those things," Maya admitted with a wry laugh. "But I'm not surprised. And the truth is, they can write whatever they want. It doesn't change how I feel about you or how you feel about me." "No," Elijah agreed. "It doesn't." He paused again. "I have to go into crisis meetings all day. The board is concerned about the company's image after some of this coverage. Can I see you tonight? I'm working at the convenience store until midnight. I'll pick you up after. We need to talk." The phrase sent a chill through Maya despite the warmth in Elijah's voice. "Okay, I'll see you then." Her shifts that day were surreal. Word of her appearance at the gala had spread, and Maya found herself the object of curious stares and whispered conversations. At the diner, Denise was full of questions, most of which Maya deflected with good humor. "Is it true his penthouse has a rooftop pool?" the older woman asked as they folded napkins during a lull. "I've never seen one if it does," Maya replied truthfully. "And he really bought you that dress? The paper said it was custom Sophia, worth thousands." Maya sighed. "The foundation provided the dress as part of my role as a speaker. And since when do you read the society pages, Denise?" "Since my favorite co-worker started dating one of the richest men in the city." Denise winked, but her expression soon turned serious. "They're not being kind, you know. The articles, making it sound like you're some kind of gold digger." "I know." Maya smoothed a napkin with more force than necessary. "But Elijah knows the truth, and that's what matters." "Good girl," Denise said approvingly. "Just remember, men like that have options, lots of them. Don't get your heart broken." The warning, though well-intentioned, echoed in Maya's mind throughout her evening shift at the convenience store. By the time midnight approached, she was exhausted both physically and emotionally, the strain of the day's scrutiny taking its toll. When Elijah's car pulled up outside the store, Maya felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The "we need to talk" had been hanging over her all day, and while she trusted Elijah's feelings for her, she couldn't help but wonder if the public reaction was proving too costly for him. He greeted her with a kiss that dispelled some of her fears, his arms wrapping around her with familiar warmth. "Rough day?" he asked, noting the fatigue in her eyes. "Nothing I couldn't handle," Maya assured him. "How was yours?" "Tedious. 6 hours of meetings about public perception and brand image." Elijah rolled his eyes as he opened the car door for her. "As if my personal life should be subject to committee approval." They drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Maya realized they weren't heading toward either of their homes. "Where are we going?" "You'll see," Elijah replied with a small smile. "I thought we could use some privacy for our conversation." The car wound its way out of the city, eventually turning onto a private road that led to a small but elegant lake house. Lights glowed welcomingly from within, suggesting someone had prepared for their arrival. "What is this place?" Maya asked as Elijah parked. "My mother's retreat. She bought it when I was a child, as a place to escape when city life became too overwhelming. Elijah's expression was soft with memory. After she died, I couldn't bear to sell it, though I rarely find time to come here. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, with comfortable furnishings and large windows that would offer stunning lake views in daylight. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, and Maya noticed a table set for two near the window, complete with covered dishes and a bottle of wine. "You planned this," she observed, touched by the gesture. "I wanted us to have space to talk without interruption or prying eyes." Elijah took her coat, hanging it carefully by the door. "Are you hungry?" Mrs. Chen, the caretaker, left dinner for us. They settled at the table, where Elijah uncovered dishes of fragrant pasta and roasted vegetables. As they ate, he filled her in on the board meetings, the concerns raised about his public image, the suggestions, some well-meaning, others less so, about how to manage the situation. "Vanessa's father was particularly vocal," Elijah said, his tone dry. "Apparently, I'm squandering an opportunity for a beneficial alliance by pursuing a relationship with someone who, and I quote, brings no strategic advantage to the company." Maya winced. "Charming?" "I told him I wasn't aware that my personal happiness was meant to be a business transaction." Elijah reached across the table to take her hand. "But that's actually related to what I wanted to talk about tonight." "Here it comes," Maya thought, bracing herself for whatever difficult conversation was about to unfold. "I've been thinking about what you said at the gala, about having to leave nursing school when your mother got sick." Elijah's thumb traced patterns on her palm as he spoke. "What if you went back?" The question caught Maya completely off guard. "What?" "To nursing school," Elijah clarified. "If money wasn't an obstacle, would you want to finish your degree?" Maya stared at him, trying to process the unexpected turn in the conversation. "Of course I would. It's all I've wanted since I had to leave. But the Monroe Foundation scholarship that Dr. Pierce mentioned is real," Elijah continued. "It covers full tuition, books, and provides a living stipend for students committed to working in underserved communities after graduation." "Elijah," Maya said slowly, beginning to understand where this was heading, "are you suggesting I apply for your foundation's scholarship?" "I'm suggesting you consider it." He held up a hand as Maya opened her mouth to protest. "Before you say anything, hear me out. The selection committee is independent. I have no influence over their decisions. The scholarship exists precisely for students like you, who had to interrupt their education due to financial hardship. But people would say I got it because of our relationship," Maya pointed out, though the possibility of returning to school made her heart race with hope. "Some might," Elijah acknowledged, "but you'd know the truth. And if you're qualified, which I have no doubt you are, why should you miss an opportunity that could change your life just because of what people might say?" Maya considered his words, torn between her pride and the dream that had seemed impossibly distant for so long. "I don't know, Elijah. It feels like—" "Taking advantage?" he finished for her. "Maya, look at me." He waited until her eyes met his. "If we had never met, if you had never sent that text, would you apply for this scholarship?" "Yes," she admitted without hesitation. "Absolutely." "Then why should the fact that we care about each other disqualify you?" Put that way, it was hard to argue with his logic. Still, Maya hesitated, aware of how it might appear to others. "What about your board? Wouldn't this just confirm their belief that I'm using you?" "I don't care what they believe." Elijah's voice was firm. "My personal life is not subject to their approval. But more importantly, this isn't about me giving you anything. It's about you claiming an opportunity you deserve." The distinction was important, Maya realized. Accepting a private gift from Elijah would have felt like charity, a reinforcement of the imbalance between them. But applying for a scholarship, one she would have sought regardless of their relationship, was different. It was an act of self-determination, a step toward the future she had envisioned for herself long before Elijah entered her life. "I'll think about it," she promised, a small smile forming. "It would be amazing to go back to school. That's all I ask." Elijah's expression softened. "And while we're on the subject of the future, there's something else I wanted to discuss." Maya raised an eyebrow, sensing another unexpected turn coming. "I've been offered a visiting professorship at the university's business school for the fall semester," Elijah said. "1 day a week teaching a course on sustainable business practices." "That sounds perfect for you," Maya replied, genuinely pleased. "You'd be an amazing teacher." "I think I'd enjoy it," Elijah agreed. "But it would mean stepping back slightly from day-to-day operations at Monroe Technologies, bringing in a temporary COO to handle some of my responsibilities." "Is that a problem?" "Not practically. The company is stable, and we have several capable executives who could step up." Elijah paused, choosing his words carefully. "It would, however, give me more control over my schedule, more time for personal priorities." The implication was clear, and it sent a wave of warmth through Maya. "Personal priorities like spending time with the woman I'm falling in love with," Elijah said simply. "Like supporting her as she pursues her dreams, the way she supports mine." The declaration, spoken so plainly in the quiet intimacy of the lake house, left Maya momentarily speechless. They had been dancing around the depth of their feelings for weeks, both aware of the growing intensity but cautious about naming it. "Falling in love?" she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Elijah met her gaze steadily. "I think we both know it's more than falling at this point. I love you, Maya. I didn't plan it, didn't expect it, but here we are." Maya felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, overwhelmed by the certainty in his voice and the answering certainty in her own heart. "I love you too," she said, the words both frightening and freeing to speak aloud, "even though it makes no logical sense." Elijah laughed softly. "The best things rarely do." He stood, circling the table to pull her to her feet and into his arms. His kiss was tender at first, then deepening with a hunger that matched her own. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Elijah rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he murmured. "Here, away from everything and everyone else." Maya nodded, no longer seeing any reason to hesitate. They had already crossed the most significant threshold, acknowledging the love that had grown between them despite every difference and obstacle. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Later, as they lay tangled in the soft sheets of the master bedroom, Maya traced lazy patterns on Elijah's chest, her mind drifting toward the future. "If I went back to school," she said thoughtfully, "I'd still need to work. The scholarship would help enormously, but there would still be expenses." Elijah's hand continued its gentle stroking of her hair. "What if you only worked one job instead of two? The foundation could use a part-time program coordinator, someone who understands firsthand the challenges our scholarship recipients face." Maya propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm suggesting a possibility," Elijah clarified. "The position exists, it needs to be filled, and you'd be excellent at it. 20 hours a week, flexible schedule to accommodate classes, and before you ask, no, I wouldn't be your supervisor. You'd report to Dr. Pierce." The offer was tempting, more than tempting. A job with meaning, one that would allow her to help others while providing the flexibility she would need as a student. Yet Maya couldn't help but wonder if it was too much, too fast. "What if," she began hesitantly, "what if things don't work out between us? Wouldn't that be awkward?" Elijah's expression grew serious. "It would, but I don't make either the scholarship recommendation or the job offer lightly, Maya. I believe in you, in your abilities, your potential. That wouldn't change, regardless of our personal relationship." His faith in her was humbling, and Maya felt a surge of determination to prove him right. I'll apply for the scholarship, she decided. And if I get it, we can discuss the foundation position. A reasonable compromise, Elijah agreed, pulling her close again. You're going to be an amazing nurse, Maya Johnson. And you're going to be an amazing professor, Elijah Monroe. As they drifted toward sleep, wrapped in each other's arms with the gentle sounds of the lake outside their window, Maya reflected on the bizarre chain of events that had led them here. A mistaken text, sent in desperation, had somehow opened the door to a future brighter than any she had dared to imagine. There would be challenges ahead, cultural differences to navigate, prejudices to overcome, balance to maintain between their distinct worlds. But in that moment, nestled against the steady beat of Elijah's heart, Maya felt certain that what they had built together was strong enough to withstand whatever came next. The morning brought pale sunlight streaming through the windows and the gentle lapping of the lake against the shore. Maya woke slowly, savoring the unfamiliar luxury of not having to rush to a shift. Elijah was already awake beside her, watching her with a tenderness that made her heart swell. "Good morning," he murmured, brushing a kiss against her forehead. "Morning," she replied, stretching contentedly. "What time is it?" "Just after 8. We have the whole day if you want it. No obligations, no interruptions." The prospect was tantalizing, a full day of freedom, away from prying eyes and everyday pressures. "That sounds perfect," Maya said, snuggling closer to his warmth. "What shall we do with all this time?" Elijah's smile held promise and possibility. "Whatever we want, that's the beauty of it." As they lay there, planning a day of simple pleasures, a walk by the lake, breakfast prepared together, perhaps a boat ride if the weather held, Maya felt a sense of peace she had almost forgotten was possible. The world and its judgments seemed very far away, and the future, once so constricted by circumstance, now stretched before them full of hope and possibility. 6 months later, Maya stood at the entrance to the university's Health Sciences building, clutching her acceptance letter from the nursing program with a mixture of pride and disbelief. The Independent Scholarship Committee had indeed awarded her the Monroe Foundation grant, providing the financial means to return to her interrupted education. Today was orientation for the fall semester, her first day back as a student after more than 2 years away. "Nervous?" Elijah asked beside her, his hand warm and steady at the small of her back. "Terrified," Maya admitted with a small laugh. "What if I've forgotten everything? What if I'm too old? What if you're exactly where you're meant to be, doing exactly what you're meant to do?" Elijah countered gently. "You've worked so hard for this, Maya. You're ready." She took a deep breath, drawing strength from his confidence in her. The past months had been a whirlwind of change, leaving her job at the convenience store, reducing her hours at the diner, and accepting the part-time position at the Monroe Foundation that Elijah had mentioned. The work was fulfilling, allowing her to help other students facing financial barriers similar to those she had encountered. Their relationship had deepened despite the continued scrutiny from certain quarters. The initial media frenzy had eventually died down, though they still occasionally appeared in society pages when attending events together. Elijah's board had gradually, if grudgingly, accepted that their CEO's personal life was not subject to corporate approval, particularly when quarterly reports showed the company thriving under his leadership. "You should go," Maya said, glancing at her watch. "Your first class starts in an hour, and you still need to set up." Elijah had begun his visiting professorship the previous week, teaching an advanced seminar on sustainable business practices. The position had indeed allowed him more flexibility in his schedule, creating space for them to build a life together amid their busy professional commitments. "I've got time," he insisted, unwilling to leave until he was sure she was ready. "The TA can handle the setup." Maya smiled, touched by his protectiveness, but determined to stand on her own. "I'm okay, really. This is something I need to do myself." Understanding dawned in Elijah's eyes. "Of course. Call me when you're done?" "I will." She rose on tiptoes to kiss him briefly. "Good luck with your class, Professor Monroe." Elijah grinned at the title, still novel enough to amuse him. Good luck with orientation, future Nurse Johnson. As he walked away toward the business school on the other side of campus, Maya watched him for a moment, marveling at the unexpected turns her life had taken. Then, with a deep breath and straightened shoulders, she turned and entered the building, ready to reclaim the dream she had once thought lost forever. The orientation session was held in a large lecture hall filled with students of various ages and backgrounds. Maya found a seat near the middle, trying to ignore the flutter of anxiety in her stomach. As she arranged her notebook and pens, a young woman slid into the seat beside her. "First day too?" the woman asked with a friendly smile. She looked to be in her early 20s, with bright eyes and an eager expression. "Sort of," Maya replied. "I started the program a few years ago but had to leave. This is my first day back." "That's amazing," the woman said with genuine admiration. "I'm Zoe, by the way." "Maya, nice to meet you." Before they could continue their conversation, the nursing program director took the podium and began outlining the curriculum, expectations, and resources available to students. Maya listened intently, taking detailed notes and feeling increasingly confident that she had made the right decision. The material was challenging but familiar, awakening knowledge she had feared might have faded during her absence. After the formal presentation, they broke into smaller groups for a tour of the facilities. Maya found herself naturally falling into a leadership role in her group, her previous experience providing context that the new students appreciated. By the time the orientation concluded 3 hours later, she had exchanged numbers with several classmates and felt the first stirrings of belonging that had been missing from her life for too long. Outside, the autumn air was crisp with the promise of the changing season. Maya texted Elijah to let him know she was finished, then settled on a bench near the fountain at the center of campus to wait for his response. She opened the packet of materials they'd been given, reviewing the semester schedule and making mental notes about textbooks she would need to purchase. "Maya Johnson?" She looked up to find Dr. Eleanor Pierce standing before her, elegant as ever in a tailored suit, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Dr. Pierce," Maya greeted her with surprise. "What are you doing here?" "Board meeting for the medical school," the older woman explained, gesturing to the building behind them. "I saw you sitting here and wanted to say hello." She nodded toward the materials in Maya's lap. "First day of orientation?" "Yes, it went well. Really well, actually." "I'm glad to hear it." Dr. Pierce's expression was warm with genuine interest. "The foundation is quite proud of you, you know. Your story has inspired several of our donors to increase their contributions specifically for healthcare education scholarships." Maya felt a flush of pride at the news. "That's wonderful. I hope it means more students in my position will get the support they need." "Precisely our goal." Dr. Pierce checked her watch. "I should get back to my meeting, but before I go, how are things at the foundation office? I understand you've been working with our scholarship recipients." "It's been incredible," Maya said sincerely. "Helping students navigate the financial aid system, connecting them with resources, seeing the relief on their faces when they realize they don't have to drop out. It's the most rewarding work I've ever done." "Your perspective is invaluable," Dr. Pierce said with approval. "When you complete your nursing degree, I hope you'll consider staying involved with the foundation in some capacity. We need voices like yours in leadership roles." The suggestion that Dr. Pierce saw her as having potential beyond her current position, that she might have a future in shaping the foundation's work, left Maya momentarily speechless. "I'd like that," she finally managed. "Very much." After Dr. Pierce departed, Maya sat in thoughtful silence, contemplating the unexpected paths that continued to open before her. 6 months ago, she had been struggling to make rent, working double shifts just to stay afloat. Now she was back in school, doing meaningful work at the foundation, and building a relationship that enriched her life in ways she had never imagined possible. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elijah. "Class just ended. Meet me at the cafe on University Ave? We should celebrate your first day back." Maya smiled, gathering her things and heading in the direction of the cafe. The campus was bustling with activity, students rushing between buildings or lounging on the grass, enjoying the pleasant weather before winter set in. She felt a sense of belonging among them now, no longer an outsider looking in but a legitimate part of this academic community. At the cafe, she spotted Elijah immediately, seated at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs before him. He rose when he saw her, his face lighting up in a way that still made her heart skip. "So?" he asked as she approached. "How was it?" "It was good," Maya said, unable to keep the smile from her face. "Really good. I think I'm going to be okay." "I never doubted it for a second," Elijah replied, pulling out her chair. As she settled across from him, Maya noticed several students at nearby tables casting curious glances their way. Their relationship was common knowledge on campus, the CEO teaching a business seminar dating a nursing student. But the initial flood of gossip had largely subsided. Now they were just another couple, albeit one with an unconventional beginning. "I ran into Dr. Pierce," Maya said, warming her hands around the mug Elijah had ordered for her, a chai latte, her favorite. "She mentioned the foundation might be interested in keeping me involved even after I finish my degree." "Of course they would," Elijah said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "You bring a perspective none of the other board members have. Your voice is essential." His absolute faith in her abilities, unwavering since the day they met, continued to be a source of strength. Maya reached across the table to take his hand, a gesture that had become second nature. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me, really seeing me, when I felt invisible to the world." Elijah's expression softened. "You were never invisible, Maya. You just needed someone to look in the right place." He squeezed her hand gently. "Besides, I should be thanking you. My life was all spreadsheets and board meetings before that text. You reminded me there's more to living than quarterly reports." They lingered in the cafe, sharing details of their respective days and planning for the weekend ahead. Elijah mentioned a dinner party at Sophia's that Saturday. The designer had become a dear friend to Maya, offering not just fashion advice but life wisdom drawn from decades of navigating a world where women were often underestimated. "Oh, before I forget," Elijah said as they were preparing to leave, "my lease is up for renewal next month. I was thinking of looking at other options." Maya raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You love that penthouse. The view alone is worth whatever astronomical rent they charge." "True," Elijah acknowledged, "but it's also a 40-minute commute from campus, and with both of us spending so much time here now." He hesitated, a rare uncertainty crossing his features. "I thought maybe we could look for a place together, something halfway between the university and downtown, convenient for both of us." The suggestion caught Maya off guard. They had been spending most nights together for months, alternating between his penthouse and her apartment depending on their schedules, but they had never explicitly discussed cohabitation. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" she clarified, wanting to be certain she understood. "I'm asking if you'd like to find a home with me," Elijah corrected gently. "Not my place or your place, but our place. Somewhere that reflects both of us." The distinction was meaningful, and Maya felt a surge of love for this man who consistently found ways to bridge their different worlds without minimizing either. "I'd like that," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "I'd like that very much." Outside the cafe, as they walked hand in hand toward the parking lot where Elijah's car waited, Maya found herself reflecting on the strange, wonderful journey that had brought them to this point. A mistaken text, sent in desperation, had somehow opened the door to a future she had never dared to imagine. There would still be challenges ahead, balancing school and work, navigating the occasional raised eyebrow or snide comment about their relationship, finding their footing as they built a life together. But as Elijah's arm slipped around her waist, drawing her close against the autumn chill, Maya felt a certainty deep in her bones that whatever came next, they would face it as they had faced everything thus far, together, with mutual respect and unwavering support. "What are you thinking about?" Elijah asked, noting her thoughtful expression. Maya looked up at him, at the face that had become so dear to her, and smiled. "Just that sometimes the wrong number turns out to be exactly the right one." Elijah's answering smile was warm with understanding and shared joy. "The best wrong number in history, as far as I'm concerned." As they continued across campus, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows before them, Maya silently thanked whatever twist of fate had caused her feverish fingers to dial those wrong digits on that desperate night. What had begun as a plea for help had transformed into something neither of them could have anticipated, a connection that transcended their differences, a love that defied expectations, and a partnership that made both of their lives immeasurably richer. In the end, it wasn't about wealth or status, about where they had come from or what they possessed. It was about who they were together, the strength they found in each other, the ways they challenged and supported one another, the future they were building day by day, choice by choice. A future that had begun with a simple message, sent by mistake but received exactly where it needed to be. 1 year later, Maya stood at the window of their new home, a spacious apartment in a renovated historic building equidistant from the university and downtown. Behind her, Elijah was arranging books on the built-in shelves that had been one of the features that sold them on the place, carefully integrating his business texts with her medical references and their shared collection of novels. The past year had brought its share of challenges. Maya's nursing program was demanding, requiring long hours of study and clinical rotations that often left her exhausted. Elijah had transitioned from visiting professor to a permanent part-time position at the business school while maintaining his role as CEO, a balancing act that occasionally resulted in 16-hour days. Yet despite the pressures, their relationship had only strengthened. They had found rhythms that worked for them, carved out sacred time together amid their hectic schedules, and built a home that truly reflected both their personalities. Elijah's appreciation for clean lines and quality materials blending seamlessly with Maya's love of color and comfort. The scholarship program at the Monroe Foundation had expanded under Dr. Pierce's leadership, with Maya's input helping to shape policies that addressed the real-world challenges facing low-income students. Her own academic performance had earned her a prestigious internship at the university hospital for the following semester, putting her one step closer to her goal of becoming a pediatric nurse. "That's the last of the books," Elijah announced, coming to stand beside her at the window. "What do you think?" Maya leaned back against him, his arms automatically circling her waist. "I think it's perfect, all of it." From their window, they could see both the downtown skyline where Monroe Technologies headquarters stood and the university campus where they each spent part of their week. The view seemed symbolic of the bridge they had built between their worlds, not erasing the differences but embracing them, finding strength in the unique perspectives each brought to their shared life. "No regrets?" Elijah asked softly, his chin resting on top of her head. "About any of it?" Maya turned in his arms, looking up into the face she had come to know as well as her own. "Not a single one. You?" In answer, Elijah reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Maya's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a ring, elegant but not ostentatious, a single emerald set in platinum with tiny diamonds flanking it. "The only regret I can imagine," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion Maya could see in his eyes, "would be not asking you to spend the rest of your life with me." Tears blurred Maya's vision as Elijah knelt before her, still holding the open ring box. "Maya Johnson, you came into my life through the most unlikely of circumstances, and you've filled it with more joy, more purpose, more love than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" The answer was as clear and certain as the love she felt for this remarkable man who had seen past every difference, every barrier, to the connection that mattered most. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Elijah, I will." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, like so much about their relationship, Maya marveled once more at the strange, wonderful path that had led them here, a wrong number that turned out to be exactly right, a desperate plea that became the first words of a love story neither could have imagined writing. And now, a new chapter beginning. Not as CEO and waitress, not as privileged and struggling, not as opposites divided by circumstance, but simply as Elijah and Maya, two people who had found in each other exactly what they hadn't known they were looking for. "I love you," Maya said, the words both familiar and newly significant as they sealed this fresh commitment. "And I love you," Elijah replied, rising to gather her in his arms. "More than I have words to express." Outside their window, the city stretched before them, full of possibilities. Inside, they held each other close, secure in the knowledge that whatever the future held, they would face it together. Equal partners in a journey that had begun with a simple text message and would continue day by day for the rest of their lives. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.